we'll just keep allowing them to work on the site. If it fails and it floods either the abutter or the river, then the enforcement order will kick in and they'll have to do a cease and desist.
Are they aware of all this?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So the neighbors are okay for now?
Yeah,
Because that's
you haven't heard from anybody
stirred up
about
a
8
bit of
days.
Okay.
Well, we have to have a heavy rain to really
Right.
see if it's
Yeah.
going to work.
We don't know when that'll be.
Right.
Doesn't
No.
sound like this coming rain is going to be that heavy.
No.
So.
Stockbridge Landing is the adjudicatory hearing at DEP, and at this point, John Cheshire is the review engineer for the town, and he just received information from the property owner's engineer. And this is the one where we've moved the septic system out of the water zone
Class A zone, yep.
But the, some of the stormwater stuff is still there, and they're seeing whether there can be some kind of a mitigation, meet in the middle, or whether it has to be a new location for the stormwater structure.
Yeah, I thought when I read the email that they would like them to move it.
We would like them in the water, DEP water, but
Yeah.
DEP wetlands is saying that it's an approved and amended 40B, and they've done everything according to what the plan
And they do
was.
realize that it does drain down into the pond.
Yep, so
All right.
it's 2 arms of DEP that
Yeah.
are,
Well, let's let them
yeah.
pick
Well,
it up.
but we're the person that filed the
I know,
appeal, so we're in the middle of this. The attorneys are all involved, so.
yeah.
The Glen was supposed to have a pre-construction meeting this week, and that was canceled. We don't have a new date. This is the duplexes up on Summer Street. Border Street culvert, there was an old hearing in the past about a gravel road up to a retreat lot, and there was some flooding, so it appears that the property owner put a pipe in himself, and it doesn't appear like it was engineered, and there's a couple of abutters are getting flooded and stagnant water, so.
Where is this?
On Border Street, right where the open fields are, going toward
Yeah,
Cohasset.
we visited that years ago. There was a pipe under the road, and somebody cleaned out the end of it, and I thought that sort of got everything resolved.
Yeah, it seems, according to the person I walked site with, there's a lot of fill now on either side of the pipe. So I'll just write a letter and have them get in touch with us, and they can, you know, we can either meet out there, or we can have them come in and talk about.
Is this on the riverside?
No.
No.
Oh, it's the one, yeah, that I,
There's a driveway that
Yeah.
goes back and sort
no,
of dips
because
down.
I was,
And on the, so it'd be on the north side,
yeah,
that water's sort of held back. And
Yeah.
we've been there more than once. And it seems like there's times a year, the pipe is not that big. And
and they put all,
it backs up into some yards, and
I
Yeah.
couldn't find any
Like a
filing
swimming
or
pool.
notice of intent for a.
I'm not sure
pipe
how
in
much
a
this
stream.
really involves us, to be honest. I mean, this has been ongoing.
Well, there was an enforcement order, and they were supposed to file a notice of intent, and I never saw the notice of intent for the pipe of the stream crossing, so I don't know if they ever did, or they just were
it
winging
was like 3 years ago. Supposedly, they fixed it at that point in time, but they were flooding the yards up above them. I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah.
And they had put mulch in, and the mulch had
Yeah.
clogged the pipe,
Yeah.
and I believe it was Bonomi doing the work out
It is.
there.
It was, yeah.
And they cleared it up, and everything was fine, but I guess it's clogged up again.
It's back to the way it was, so we'll just find out.
Yeah,
more
let's
about
send them a
what's
letter,
going
have them
on.
come in and explain it, bring us up to date.
Okay, do you want to start the RDAs, and we can get back to these?
Sure. Conway, 67 Collier Road, fencing and dune grass. On May 21st, 2014, during the 6:15 meeting, Town of Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Kenneth J. Conway for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetland bylaws to allow a low-barrier dune fencing and dune grass on property located at 67 Collier Road, Scituate, of others and interested parties are invited to attend. Mr. Conway,
Hi, Frank.
how are you?
Good. My name is Ken Conway. I live at 15 Eagles Nest Road in Scituate. My wife Carol and I and family have been in Scituate since 1984, so about a little over 30 years. My family owns 67 Collier Road, the property that we're talking about today. Previously, up the street, we owned 39 Collier Road, so we're very familiar with the seawall and what happens down there at the spit. Personally, I served on the Conservation Commission and was proud to have worked with Frank and several others where we actually made the walkway on the driftway a reality, much to the chagrin of some of the selectmen who now all claim it was their idea to put it in now that everybody says it's such a great walkway. So I want to thank Frank again for his hard work on that, and the others know who they are that worked very hard on
A
it.
good group, not that we don't have a great group now, but there was also a good group of folks then.
The other thing I just want to point out is our family owns over 30 acres of conservation land on Grove Street. So I'm one of the few people that either served on conservation or that has come before the board that actually is putting my money where my mouth is with actually having conservation land.
That's a nice piece of property as well.
Yeah, it is.
Valley Property between Grove Street and 3A.
Yeah, exactly. So we're very fortunate to own it for some period of time and then turn it over to some other family. The 67 property was owned by the Wilcox family for over 70 years, so about almost the last 80 or so years now. It's only been in two different families. It's a real spectacular property. The issue here really doesn't impact the property. The issue is much different than anything that I ever heard of when I was on the board, which was anyone coming in actually trying to help preserve a protected area. Usually most of the people coming here are talking about how do they do something else, and by the way, we'll try to do some kind of remedy to disrupt it as little as possible. So the issue really is with the board and the comp committee is, whether in fact they're interested in trying to preserve as much of the marsh as still is left there, and in my opinion, possibly save the spit. I have some pictures to show you in a minute that in the storm, 2 storms ago, it was over the winter. It actually came over and breached what I'll call the cobble wall that's there. That wall has moved over 160 feet in the last 2 years. It moved 120 feet last year, about 40 feet this year. So our property line now, which goes out 200 feet, the ocean is now in our property. So in fact, our 67 property is more valuable than it used to be because it's, quote, now more, it's oceanfront property, where before the marsh was there, our property ended, and then the town owned the property in front of that. The other thing just to point out is as we continue to lose that marshland there, that whole marshland and the spit area is a protected area for the terns and the plovers. So if that goes, we're going to have a problem. I'll show you a couple of pictures in a minute. So I guess the bottom line is what my wife Carol and I would like to do at our expense is attempt to at least slow this erosion. It's not really the erosion. The marsh is actually getting filled in with sand and cobble by putting minor barriers in, sand fencing, and some planting of beach grass. I had talked with Pat about this earlier. I had talked to him about coming in, and before we did anything, I ended up getting involved with my 90-year-old mother who is still living by herself, and the work got done, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted to be clear that, Pat and I had talked. I had agreed to come in. The guys that were going to do the work for me did it. It's my responsibility. So with your permission, I'll come up and just show you a couple of the pictures of what's happened over the last year and see what you guys want to do.
So this is an after the fact,
Yes.
RDA, yep.
but the work has already been completed.
Yeah, and the exception that I'm looking at with the law is that if in fact you're doing minimal damage, then in fact there's an exception allowed. In fact, what this is doing is not only doing minimal damage, it's actually trying to preserve the wetland.
Okay. I just want to be sure I'm clear on.
It's after the fact.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with what,
Okay. So I've got them on here, which is about as big as I can get it, if somebody knows how to make this map even a bigger picture. So that first picture there is
I've been down there.
in the winter, and you can actually see the cobble wall there, the cobble wall on that side,
Lisa, can you see?
and it breached in the middle. And it was running through, so you can see the cobble to the left and to the right.
Okay.
Yep, I've been down.
And I know some people.
So this is from like your deck looking down onto the lawn and then
This is
the,
actually standing on the lawn about 50 feet up on the lawn.
Okay.
This property is about 280 feet
Yeah.
wide. and- So here's a shot of what it looks like without the water running through, and you can see on the left there that basically what we do is we have 4x4s going into the ground about 2 feet, sticking out of the ground 1 foot with 2x4s going across it with an opening, which would let the sand run through it, the water run through it, but try to catch the cobble and slow them down from just going in and filling in the marsh.
Do you have a photo of that?
That's, oh, sorry. I did. So you can see it right.
So are you basically taking this photo from the same location of the previous picture?
Maybe I think I was on the other side of the tree then,
Okay.
so I'm within 25 feet. But there you can see the wall that, the retainer that we put in. Yeah, all these weren't taken at the same spot because they were taken on different dates.
so where's the piece that you put in, Ken?
It's right there,
I see.
which I think there's further pictures that blow
Sure.
it up a little bit more.
Was there a snow fence too?
There is, you'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Snow fences.
That was actually a different issue of how do we just try to collect some of the sand and quite frankly, keep the people off the area, because now that this year there's not much sand up there, so all the people that, want to come down and use the beach, one, they're unaware that it's my personal property now where they are because the water's come in so far. And number two, they don't want to hear it that, we don't want them in the dunes. So here you can actually see a good shot of that.
Oh, okay,
that
so
wall.
it's right there. Can I just tip it?
Sure.
Yeah, like this.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So it's all right here. About how high is that?
It's a foot, when we put it in, you'll see another one, I think. It was like a foot out of the, where the new sand came in. So basically, we put it right behind the end of the cobble. The sand ran about another 20 feet past that, filled the marsh in, and we put it at the end of the cobble, maybe 5 feet off of that, and just put the posts in, which I think were about, 10 or 12 feet apart or something like that.
So when you did this work, this is all frozen, so was this February, March, when?
Yeah, I think so.
It was in the winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was down
Yeah, I
there in
was
the
down.
winter when,
Down at my mother's, and the guys that I had talked to do.
I've been up there, I'd seen it.
Went out.
yep.
And then, let's see. Now, this is just a shot showing, looking back at the house. There used to actually be, probably back in the early 1900s,
I'm just gonna tip it again.
a walkway that went out over the cobble. You can see
All right.
some of the posts that are out there. So, in fact, people.
So the stone wall is on your property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that stone wall's on my property, and the property that we made the modifications to is on my property,
Okay, so the modification is on this side of the stone wall?
Yeah, it's out here.
out here.
Okay, over here, okay.
So basically, we own 200 feet out in front of the stone wall, into the marsh and into the beach area.
Okay.
So before, it used to be all marsh, about 8 years ago when we bought it. And now it's marsh and cobble. Here's another shot that actually shows the other small extension that we put in, which basically we put it on a turn to try to catch the cobble in like a V.
Mm-hmm.
So that piece is fairly short, it's like 20 feet, and the other piece is like maybe 80 feet long.
So what month did you put the original fence in?
The whole thing was done, like, I think, in, I don't know, February and March, when I came back, it was done.
It was prior to that. It was,
Before,
Pat probably knows. It was when we were having the hearing on the house,
Yeah.
a couple of houses up.
Yeah.
That's how we found out that it was
That
out.
was in March. I don't know, it doesn't make any
It-
difference.
well,
We
it
did
was-
and, you know, we should have been here first.
Okay.
Then you can, this one, you can actually see the other little piece on the side.
Side, right.
Do we have anything in a plan, Ken, or is it just photos at this stage?
I thought I put something on,
Do we have any kind of a sketch or
Nope.
drawing or anything?
here's the beach fencing. It was just a small piece put in there, in the dune.
Yeah, that one I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since then, already, people have already tried to tear down half of it, so, you know, who knows how long it's gonna last. So I now have my game camera out there catching who the people are.
Okay.
Let's see what else they have. So here you can see now, since it was done in the winter, it's already started to catch some, but you can see it's still filling the marsh in. Because the prior pictures, all that sand there was back up there. So you can see where the fence is actually, the sand has run through the fence, but the cobble hasn't. So the idea was, if you can get the cobble to at least start building up there again a little bit, maybe the sand will go, and then if you plant enough beach grass in there, maybe, you know, you can hold it. We were during, go ahead. In the first picture, when I was down there, we were about somewhere between 50 and 100 yards from having a rip go from the ocean side all the way over to the North River.
Right.
Which got me concerned of, we may have a new opening if we don't do something, and then we lose potentially up to the spit. Here's just another shot of the sand fencing.
Yeah.
You guys have probably seen that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so this isn't any excuse, but I just took a couple other pictures of town, you know, with keep off the dunes, which that's not Peggotty Beach.
Right. We have some fencing along there to keep people from, hopefully keep them on a
Yeah, try to-
walkway.
And then, I mean, just to show you the difference of, we're trying to save something as compared to let's fill the dune, let's fill the marsh in, here's what's going on down at Peggotty. There's a huge, there was, it's not there anymore. They were actually moving the sand into the marsh, of which I know there wasn't any paperwork done for that either, so.
who's moving the sand into
I
the
don't know,
marsh?
you guys have got to figure that out, but I mean, there's the picture. So, I'm trying to save it, you got other guys filling it in, I got the pictures. I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. If you want to let it go, fine. If you don't want to do, if you don't, you know,
Well,
if you
I
want to
don't-
do something else, because what I would like to do is as that starts building up, if it does, is just keep going up another foot each time with that same kind of fence. We're too late to put the grass in now. So,
Okay. Well, I think we'll go through the process here to let members obviously have questions and whatnot. Because I think it's a little bit more complicated than whether it just stays or goes. But why don't you,
Okay, first off,
and can I just,
Yes.
before, maybe Pat, just,
Sure. This is, I mean, it's a request for determination, so it's basically asking whether a notice of intent needs to be filed for the work that's proposed out there.
Right.
If you were a little back lot and you had a little sand in front, and you want to put down beach grass or a fence, it'd be a lot simpler, but because it's a protected habitat area under natural heritage, it's also, North River Commission might have jurisdiction, Audubon's out there with endangered species. You really have to meet a high standard and have it done a particular way. There's,
every one of the things that we're doing helps
Mr.
that.
Ken, just, let Pat,
No, I mean, this may work well, it's just that, there are other organizations and agencies that need to make a determination. And this
Okay.
came from Storm Smart Coast, from the Coastal Zone Management Group. They talk about what type of fences work, how you put them in. You need to have a plan that's got a lot more to it than someone banging fences into the sand. And there may be areas because of endangered species that you don't want to put it. So it's not to say that it can't be done.
We doing all that stuff at
you
Peggotty?
can, just,
I mean,
in fairness.
Okay,
let me just-
I'm sorry. I'll
This is
stop.
gonna be a discussion.
Yeah.
But you had a chance to put this out. What I've asked
Yeah.
now is that the agent
Yep.
can
Right.
give his piece. We'll go through the members with some questions, and we'll have a hearing, okay? I understand that you've got your concerns and that you feel like you're doing the right thing here, but I think we need to go through the
You're right.
process.
Right. And we can't possibly give an okay to something that's in the jurisdiction of, threatened species organizations and stuff like that. I mean, we could weigh in and say, gee, we'd like to have the sand built up or the cobble moved and saved or whatever, but if a notice of intent went out and everybody else went along with it and said, gee, that was done perfectly, I think that's different than, I think this will work, I hope it works, and
Okay. All right, Penny?
My concern, just right this moment, number one, I definitely feel a notice of intent, we need a plan, I need to know exactly where your property ends. I mean, you say it's 200 feet, I'm not saying it isn't, but I need to see a plan, I need to see where this has been put on. And I would like to see it filed properly. The other problem I have with it, I was out there today at high tide. It's underwater. How long do you think that's going to last if every high tide that is underwater? It's underwater right now. You can't even see your fence. You can see the snow fence, but I sure couldn't see the fence that I saw when I was out there this
But I
winter.
think before we determine the value of the...
Yeah, well, I'm just,
work, I think
throwing
the-
that out. I have made, that's why I feel we have to have a notice of intent.
Okay.
I agree, there should be a notice of intent. I would go further and say I wouldn't have anything taken out right away, my own feeling, but I would rather have a notice of intent, have the plans made, and go along with whatever other groups have to be to, your intent is perfect, I think. Well stated, and I think I understand what you're trying to do, but it does have to be done right. And so I think we have to go through the process. Personally, you may object that, I wouldn't have him rip it out right now. I would just make steps to make sure that if we're going to continue with it, find out what the right way to do it is. Then it may have to be adjusted, it may have to come out and start over, I don't know. But I think an NOI is absolutely, and it's too bad you weren't able to get in when you first talked with Pat.
Well, not to overstate everything. So I think we simply have to identify the regulatory requirements for this, absolutely. And there's really no question about it.
Lisa?
Two-part question. Were you on the Scituate Conservation Commission?
I was even the chair.
So you knew the process.
I do know the
So why
process.
didn't you follow it?
I apologized right in the beginning, didn't I?
Okay. And,
I didn't think it applied, to be honest with you. I haven't had the experience from being a chair on it. And, am I allowed to talk now, or do you
Sure.
want me to? And the prior agent had already told me it was okay. So, Pat and I had agreed I wasn't gonna do it until I filed. My mistake. I accept that responsibility.
Can I just quantify that? The prior agent, we've had a few.
Vinny,
Huh?
Vinny.
Okay.
I just never got around to
No, I didn't
doing
know,
it
I mean, the prior to Pat was a fellow by the name of Jim O'Connell. and
No, Vinny did.
I would have been quite surprised if Pat O'Connell had said, if Jim O'Connell had said, go ahead with that without,
No, I just didn't do it in a timely method, so that's
so
my
we
fault.
have paperwork then? That
No.
No.
No,
reflects this?
it was, meeting with Vinny.
Oh,
He said,
okay.
hey, you're gonna try to save something, unlike most people down here trying to ruin something, so, no problem.
Okay.
That was his decision. So, I didn't follow through fast enough, that's my fault.
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing the area and a map, and also after reading some of this information here, how they specify sand fencing and, you know, type of posts and stuff. That sounds like it would be pretty important to know what exactly is in there. I mean, it really sounds like, I mean, your heart is in the right place. You're really trying to protect something. But I'm guessing that, seeing we're not the only organization with jurisdiction, I don't know, Pat, the process of, do you contact Natural Heritage, or?
Well, if there's a filing with a notice of intent, that gets forwarded on to Natural Heritage. We have, you know, our issues that we look at, and then they look at theirs, and then people like Audubon, they would comment on it. There may be areas where they don't want sand to build up, or maybe, you know,
Okay.
they may have something.
I think as Pat pointed out, and I think it's an awful lot of resource areas, there's a lot of sensitive areas, there's different means of trying to stabilize a dune, protect a dune. It's not uncommon for people to want to do that, whether we were at a beach somewhere trying to hang on to some sand or whatever. There's absolutely no question people are making that attempt to do that everywhere. The issue is the process to go through to do that, and whether some of these are prescribed methods or approved methods, and not just by us, but by the state. I mean, that's theoretically, it looks to me like it's on a barrier beach. And there's issues with how that can be
That's a different one.
dealt with. You know, seems like wooden structures, different ways to hold back those or to create some dunes. You know, maybe there's other pieces along with the fencing. There's a whole bunch of experimental ways, you know, vegetation and all those sort of things. The overwash issues, Mr. Conway pointed out, the area at Peggotty Beach where there was overwash and a lot of it went onto the marsh. Surprisingly, the state actually was very critical of the town removing more of that material that washed onto the marsh than we needed to. We needed to keep some channels clear to make sure that the area towards Gilson Road drained. But they were not big on having us remove a lot of material off the marsh, which seemed a little bit surprising. And sometimes it can be contradictory. But I think that's the other reason for a filing. I know it takes more time, and I know it's more expense, and it gets involved, but hopefully the end game would be that you'll find a way to protect some of your property or hang on to it, because that's what's really happening, is slowly but surely Mass Bay or the Atlantic Ocean is working its way towards that, and anybody's trying to stabilize those dunes. So I don't think we're opposed to that, but it does have to be done.
There's a process.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because it's not always clear how that works. But with filing that, then you can move, and there may be hopefully some positive things that come from that, so that in the end, you'll get more of what you hope to attain in protecting your own property. As far as the snow fences go, at some place out there, isn't there a way for folks to walk to the spit? They don't have to walk across,
No, there's a path.
No, there's a walkway.
am I
There's a
right?
walkway.
They can, there's two ways to get to the spit,
Yeah.
other than boat.
Yeah,
You can go down to the end of Collier Road where Collier meets Moreland, and there's a path that goes out there, of which there's a non-permitted walkway
okay.
that was put in.
And that's open to I know there's no parking anywhere, but is that?
Anybody can go down that.
Right,
The other entrance is between where our old house used to be, 39 Collier, and I think it's 43 or whatever it is, where people used to jump up onto the rocks, because there used to be a stairway to get up there, walk down along the seawall, and then get down to the end of the spit.
Right.
Today, they actually walk through a pathway that is a legal easement, but what they don't have a legal easement to do is to turn right and go through 3 lots that are all private property, that own, into the ocean.
okay.
So if that, now, where we are, is where the people used to be on the beach 2 years ago, that wasn't my property.
Right, but now because the beach has
Now,
moved in.
now it is my property.
I see.
So now I have legal rights on what I can allow or not allow on that property.
Okay.
And
All
if
right.
that marsh actually goes, then those people won't be able to get there and maybe, you know, if there's a cut made in there, they won't be able to get to the
there at
spit,
all,
if it
right.
even, if the spit even stays.
Right. And, well, part of the other issue that's happening with that creek or whatever that's behind your house, or between your house and that area filling in, is how does that drain or all that sort of stuff. So it's fairly complex, and I think that's the reason,
Well, probably 100 foot of that creek is filled in,
yeah,
100 foot of the length.
okay.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Sure.
I make a motion for a positive
Positive what?
determination. It needs
Okay,
to go.
The second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, there's a couple of different numbers,
Yeah, that's what.
yeah, for
Well,
the
you
DOAs.
can figure it out.
So before you finish that, can I make one other statement?
Sure.
So one, I don't think, and it didn't happen when I was the chair or I was a member of the commission, and it still isn't happening, there's not equal treatment of process for everybody. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that the town doesn't drag the people in and make them do stuff. And, you know, on the beachfront, I'm talking about, on Peggotty, in Humrock, almost any place, with beach grass, with pushing water, you know, sand back into the ocean, pushing cobble in. So I just want fair treatment. Number two, it's not my intent to try to protect my property. I could care less what happens to it, because my property is protected by another seawall right there.
Right.
So, you know, if that whole thing goes, it just goes. I'll just have sand in front of my house.
Well, I
So,
don't,
so here's my position before you guys vote. I'm not gonna spend another dime on it. I will spend time on it, but I'm not gonna spend a dime on getting any engineering studies. If you guys want me to pull the stuff out, I'll pull it out, end the discussion. I'll put my no trespassing signs up, we're done. So
Well-
I'm not gonna spend any money. If you tell me I got a file, or you wanna see some more, you know, plans that show I actually own it, I'll bring that stuff into you. But I'm not spending any money on engineering. I'm not doing it, because I don't have to do it. You want me to take it out, I'll take it out. Let nature take whatever happens. Because I'm not trying to build something down there, I'm not trying to screw something up, and I'm in here begging for something.
well, you know what, Ken, and you and I have served a long time, and I think that you certainly have done a lot of work on different projects over the years and done a good job on that. I think you also know, to some degree, the process that people are supposed to go through. We know that not everybody does that. We encourage people to do that. We keep trying to find reasonable ways to get folks to do that. We've created minor activities permits so that folks with some simple jobs can come in and ask for that sort of thing and not go through all the paperwork.
That's what this is.
That, well, that's your interpretation of it.
Correct, that's my interpretation.
But when we look at this and we see where the activity is being worked on, and we compare that to what for other areas, folks have had to file a notice of intent.
So those guys with
and-
that big dozer and stuff, they filed a notice of
We,
intent?
and maybe.
I'd like to see that if they have, because I
Instead-
couldn't find it.
I know that after the storm, people took some liberties, that they could move material. The state had a ordinance right after one of the storms where folks had a certain number of time to move some stuff. I looked at that picture quickly. I don't know whether that's a town thing or whether that's a private person.
Doesn't make any difference, the town has to file, just
There is-
like an individual does.
There is an order of conditions for Peggy Beach management, and there was an order of conditions to move the road behind the home, so there are.
No,
you're
that's a
welcome to
different,
come in
that's a
and
different
see it.
one. I was actually the member that actually helped that road get behind there. So I understand that part.
Right, but
But
in
I'm-
order,
what-
but in order to put that road behind there, you understood.
No, that picture is closer to the Peggotty parking lot, which has nothing to do with the road that's behind those private homes right there. They own that private road.
Well,
They were dumping stuff in the marsh.
we'll be glad
I don't care, you know, it's like, I don't care if you had one or didn't.
Do you have the same pictures, Pat, of that project?
We have some from not this winter, but the winter before, but
All right.
we're giving you the opportunity to file, to do the work you like to do, by the rules as we
Okay.
understand them. So if you choose not to, it's your choice.
And the other part is, I mean, I don't think, do we have an enforcement order on this or anything?
Wrote a letter of
It's only
violation.
threatened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like the commission isn't trying to be,
No, I know, I'm just not spending any money. I'll
Well-
pull the stuff out.
if you want to put the NOI together yourself, that's you just said that you're willing to put the time in. If you want to file it yourself, that's fine.
There's an appeal process too to this. If a positive determination is made, you want to appeal, you can appeal to DEP.
I mean, we certainly applaud anybody that's trying to preserve that, but it has to be a process to do that. And I hope you can appreciate that. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have to give it a number?
I think we voted it.
Yeah, so it doesn't need a number.
Do we have the number?
Do we need a
It
number?
it would be
One.
positive 1, 3,
One.
and 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So be it.
I'm going to keep that.
Yep.
Thank you. You're welcome. Ister, 111 Summer Street septic repair. On May 21st, 2014, during the 6:15 meeting in the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Louis Ister for a determination of applicability to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetland bylaws to install a septic system on property located at 111 Summer Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Jeff Bassett with Morse Engineering. This is an RDA for a septic repair at 111 Summer Street. This property is about an acre in size. We have the wetlands delineated by Brad Holmes, which is shown in blue here. And we also have a 50-foot buffer in red and the 100-foot buffer in green. The property is developed with a bituminous concrete driveway, a single-family dwelling, and a barn. Currently, the cesspool is located in the backyard. It failed the Title V inspection, so we're looking to put in a new system. I believe the owners are looking to sell the property, so that's what has triggered this process. We did test pits back here, and we found good loamy sand down about 4 feet, 4.5 feet. And the grade comes up right here, which is why we chose this area. The elevation is about 111 over the deck, or the patio in the back. So we're looking to kind of, and then it drops off fairly quickly to 108. So we're able to kind of extend that grade out a little bit and work in a leaching field where it won't look like a mound, and we found good material. Due to the extent of the wetlands, there kind of is a limited area. This area is also very low lying. It's pretty wet when you walk around there after a storm. The grade's a little bit higher out front, but after you put a 10-foot setback to the property line, and there's a large tree, a driveway, walkway, retaining wall, there really isn't any room. So we feel this is the best location for a septic. There are 2 test pits. It runs by gravity to a septic tank, and then a pump chamber will pump it up to the field. We do have an erosion control barrier at the limit of frontage.
Penny?
I don't have a problem with it. There is some junk in the buffer zone.
Say that again.
Did you say we have a leaching field beside a wetland? Did I get that right?
Well,
Back here that could.
so where he wants to locate the
Yeah, that the,
leaching
you know,
field is
clean-
sort of in the
clean
back
up
of the
the
house
site a
and to the
little.
left of the barn.
It is a little messy
And the other,
to get out
really, is
there.
what he's saying, is the only
And I
alternative
understand over
to
years.
that, which
we
would be
proposed
potentially
stuff,
possible,
yeah.
is sort of on the
It's also
corner of that
occupied by a
parking.
tenant right now.
But it wouldn't be a tight tank, wouldn't be.
No, it'll be a
Yeah.
leach, yeah, well,
That's
no, they
going
could
to be
put,
removed
but
because
where they
they're moving
got
out
perks and,
on the market.
what he's saying,
So we,
Okay,
okay,
okay.
so.
But that,
we-
that would be
I
something
mean,
I'd
what we
like
try
to
to
see.
do is usually ask if they can
Where
get,
is the current, where's the current?
but,
Says-
given where everything's
System.
already located, there
Okay,
isn't.
so you're basically going to use the same area that it's been in?
Yes, I believe there's a leaching pit in this area, so what they do in that case is they have to dig it out, throw, and remove it, and then they'll take out all the A and the B horizon and replace it with sand.
Okay.
How far is the pit from the wetlands?
The leaching field is 81 feet. The existing pit
Yeah.
is probably about the same, I don't know exactly where it is. There actually aren't any records of it.
So the tank that you are going to be putting in now, how far is that from the wetlands delineation?
The tanks are 100 feet.
Okay.
The leaching field, which is the plastic chambers, about a foot deep,
Yeah.
2.5 feet wide by 5 feet long, are 81 feet from the wetland.
And that's as far up as you can get it, really, with the soil testing, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yep, gotcha.
And it's the same size tank that you're replacing it with the same size as the one you're removing?
No, the regulations were different when this was installed. It's basically just some type of cesspool on the ground. By today's Title V standards, you have to have a 1,500-gallon septic tank. And in this case, it has to be pumped in elevation to get it to provide adequate groundwater separation. So we need a pump chamber as well, and then a leaching field. In the past, they would just do a pit that was deep, and that didn't protect the environment because the bottom of it went into the groundwater table, and you get the bacteria breakdown as it infiltrates through the soil. So now what they do is they do a horizontally larger system, which is only about a foot deep. So it's the
Spreads it
leaching
out
pit
more.
is just a small pit. We're replacing that with a larger system because that's the new standard.
The former owner of this house did a lot of site work and stuff himself, so there could be almost anything in the backyard. From years and years ago, not
Yeah,
recently.
no, I know. You know, if you walk out there, there's stuff from years and years ago.
Penny, did you asked about some material that's sort of in the wetlands, I think Pat?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
It's all the
some
same
clearing
stuff.
in the buffer, and there's debris in the wetlands. There may even be concrete brick stuff, but there's a lot of old Christmas trees and stuff like that that's dumped into the wetland in the buffer, so we could probably get some of that cleaned up as part of this project.
I think that'd be a good idea.
We could condition it, even though it's a DOA.
It might not be a bad idea to have some sort of markers or something too on this one,
Yeah.
so that people know where the wetlands are.
But, yeah, okay. 4x4s with markers.
Yep.
Did this one go through, is this the one that went through DEP, Board of Health already?
Yes, it has. We submitted it about a month ago. We got a couple comments, just adding a note for the, couple notes which didn't change the design. And we submitted that back on May 12th. And I called a couple times, I left a voicemail today, just trying to verify if it had actually been signed off on. So I believe it has been, but I can't confirm that.
So we should,
Yeah, so
pending,
it's- yep.
pending the sign off.
Okay.
We could still find it a
Yeah.
negative pending
Yeah.
the finding, and with a couple of conditions on there.
Okay. Anybody in the audience for this? Okay, a motion?
I make a motion for -3.
Great.
Second,
With some.
with the, with the aforementioned conditions, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Geary, 0 and 23 Parker Ave, amended stormwater.
I love this guy. Holy moly.
On May 21st, 2014, at 6:45 PM, Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws to amend the orders of condition issued under DEP file number 68-2457 regarding the application of Michael Geary to replace a retaining wall with a stone wall, revise the stormwater system, regrade, and install plantings on property located at 0 and 23 Parker Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Great. Jeff DeLisi, representing Mike Geary, who's the owner of the property, right next to me. I'm here with Paul today, Paul Marabito as well. Paul filed an amended plan. I'll let Paul talk about the plan. He also submitted calculations following our last hearing to the town consulting engineer, and they apparently check out, but I'll let Paul go through what was filed and so forth.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering Company. If you recall, we were about here late, we were in front of the commission about a month ago, so you can see if we could have these changes to the site work done without going through the amendment process, and the decision was that we should go through it. So what we have done is Jeff mentioned, we have filed an application for a stormwater permit and order conditions. And what I've done is to submit revised plans, the notice of intent plan for the stormwater. And what the changes involved is in the original condition, we had a very high reinforced concrete wall coming around the perimeter of the lot, which is shown here. That was as high as 12 or 14 feet in this corner. What we've done is to have that wall eliminated, and in its place, we're going to put up a much lower boulder wall. The elevation at the end is the same elevation as the existing grade. This corner would be about 5.5 to 6 feet out of the ground, and then the land would slope up at 3 to 1. Then we have a flat area from here back to some walls in here that are part of the landscaping for the patio on the downhill side of the house. What we are doing as far as stormwater is these yellow circles represent subsurface leaching pits. What we're doing outside the buffer zone is we'll take the runoff from this portion of the house in the driveway and recharge it back into these two pits. Down in the lower part, there's 3 additional pits that will pick up the water coming from this area down toward the lower portion of the property. This is the architect's plan as well. We've got a series of plans along the perimeter of what would be the area, as well as quite a bit of landscaping outside the buffer in this area here. So that's the extent of the changes. But what we've done is to pull way back on the amount of fill we brought in on the site, the amount of wall, and we've done the stormwater calculations, which we're reviewing right now, associates, and we can have the last one. So with that, I'll my presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Penny?
I got this today, so I don't know if you already saw this on the additional comments, that we understand the applicant's intent to provide 4-inch drain down heights. The applicant shall update the leaching pit detail to reflect this. So the contactor is clear. Did you see that? That's
No, who's that from?
Josh.
Okay.
I got this today.
It might be helpful if I could clear
Yeah.
that up.
Sure.
My name is Joshua Bose.
Oh,
from
he is here.
Corporation,
Great.
And we're the peer review engineer for this project for the Town of Scituate Conservation Commission. We review the project as it pertains to stormwater regulations in Scituate, and our initial review resulted in a number of relatively minor comments. Some of the comments regarding the calculations, the nuts and bolts of the calculations. We had suggested test pits beneath some of the drainage structures, and there was some of the details on the plan we requested to be clarified so that it would be built correctly. That resulted in a revised plan and submittal from Ross Engineering, and I then subsequently reviewed the revised plans. There was one outstanding comment, which is a comment you just read, Penny, regarding a detail. And I had submitted the letter to Pat yesterday because it was, I wanted to get it to him as soon as possible. After the letter was submitted, Greg Tansey from Ross clarified that. He showed me where that information was in the detail. So I did follow up with a second letter to the commission,
Okay,
with no
I
comment.
just didn't get that.
It-
So it is okay?
It is fine, yes. He showed me where the information was. It was
Okay.
somewhat hidden. But anyway, I did follow up with a clean letter, so the record should have a clean letter with no further outstanding comments.
Great.
Thank you.
Good.
Richard?
Much improved. I don't have any difficult questions right now.
Good.
Lisa?
I don't have any questions.
Thanks for the modifications.
Yes.
Pat?
I agree. I think that the engineers provided a lot of great information, and our review engineer went through it point by point, covered everything, and it's very thorough, and I think feels like it'll work.
Yeah, I mean, essentially from what was approved a long time ago, this is now terraced.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially what
It's
it
different.
winds up doing it.
Yeah.
So it drops from the house down in a series of,
Like, probably my biggest concern would be the neighbor in front, make sure no water off the
Well, they've
house
got it.
goes that way. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they've
they've
cap-
taken
they've
care of
captured it.
that, they're catching it. Yeah.
So,
so what do we do? So, anybody else in the audience for this? So we close it? Do we,
It's an
can we close it
amendment.
where it's an amendment, or we just accept it?
It gets closed as an amended order of conditions, and, I mean, the conditions are already provided to us. We can accept the conditions,
Okay.
and you can vote on it.
I'm okay with that.
I don't, what, do you have a new set of orders?
I
Is
think,
that
you-
what
I
you're
think you're
saying?
okay if you just amend the
Just,
plan.
I think if we amend the plan and accept these,
We
conditions, the way
accept the
that they,
conditions of the-
the way they're
Conditions
written,
are
yeah.
closed.
yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the amended plan and the conditions enclosed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this Pat's?
Give the next hearing.
Yes.
Yeah,
The rest were already
it's
closed.
gonna be,
Five versions, I'll get it later.
Okay.
Well, you know more than I do.
gonna be a hell of a process.
Frank,
Sometimes not, you know,
Come on, Patty, that's not true.
I was there. A chance to introduce you to my wife.
We noticed.
Are we okay with the school?
Yeah, this,
Yeah, all right.
this is the current Mansfield. We've already closed,
Yeah.
and so it's the same group, and there's stormwater sent up, there's stormwater permit.
Okay. So you want to just do that next, so
We
that,
could knock that off and maybe announce what it is.
all right, we're just going to skip over, and typically we do orders of conditions towards the end of the evening, but because there's a bunch of the parties already here, we're going to do that. So it's Hoffman Lot 2, 55 Colonel Mansfield, new build.
Thank you very much.
I have handouts.
Okay, sure. As Pat's handing that out, just a couple brief comments, is Pat circulated to me a draft of the orders, the proposed orders. Orders 39, 40, and 41, I was hoping to discuss specifically with the commission. 39 concerns as few trees as possible shall be cut and removed on the site within the area jurisdiction to maintain a buffer zone. 40 concerns a hammerhead design that is hundreds of feet outside of the jurisdiction of this commission. I'm not sure how this particular order or proposed order got to be involved, but I don't think that it's appropriate for this order of conditions at all, concerning the design of the hammerhead and how it's to be used. And then 41 concerns the use of a particular piece of equipment in order to minimize disturbance in a tree line. None of these three orders were even discussed, or issues, topics were discussed at all at the prior hearings on this matter. And I simply think that none of them are necessary. As far as the trees are concerned, we're going to do the work that's shown on the plan, and nothing more, nothing less. If it requires the removal of trees, it requires the removal of trees, but that's as is indicated on the plan. As far as the hammerhead, I think it's outside of jurisdiction, and I think that I spoke with briefly with the applicant prior to the hearing, and he's not certain he can actually be able to access the property with the particular piece of equipment that you guys are requiring in order to minimize disturbance of the tree line. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out. And then there's a condition 42. I proposed particular language to Pat. It looks like you guys are looking for some mitigation. We're happy to provide the planting mitigation that's requested. Yep.
And I, on the first comment there, as few trees as possible. We did discuss that.
Oh,
We just, I remember, because I brought it up, that we want to, on the plan, we don't want to see that whole back section go. We're talking, I do believe, what you showed on the plan, just to make sure.
What we showed on the plan.
All right? So that's why that would be in there, that we don't want to go out there and see a clear cut all the way back to the 50 completely.
Right,
Paul, do you
but-
have a copy of this plan? Can we put this,
I do, if you want it.
I just put it up so that, because I missed the last meeting, I tried to follow this. When we first opened the meeting, we asked them to possibly reduce the area. Did we get a revised plan for that?
The tree line on the southern portion of the site was cleared to the property line to the south, and then in the revised plan, those trees were left alone, so.
Okay, so the revised plan shows a reduction. That's what I thought.
Turn the house, so that's why.
I thought the hammerhead was part of the
On the
watershed.
Hammerhead design, I think,
Part of,
yeah, they were approved by
Okay,
planning board.
but
so
it
I
doesn't
don't-
come into
We don't have
the
any jurisdiction.
water?
What's that?
Doesn't come into the water drainage
Well,
calculation?
if it's shown on the
Well, let's,
plan.
you know what, let's try to do one conversation at a time, okay?
All right.
Yeah,
Yes, somewhere, I'll find it.
but we
All right,
did.
so we have a revised plan that shows what the limit of cutting is. So is this redundant, or,
I don't think it is. I hate, past experience that say is that we have a plan, and then we go out there, and they've gone way beyond.
So if we just
So-
say, as indicated on the plan,
Saying it again, according to the plan,
Well, but it is
all right?
redundant.
I mean, people don't even half the time review orders. So I don't think it's redundant. We're not saying you can't do what's on the plan, we're talking about the plan.
Yeah, Penny, I
I don't want to go out
understand it.
there.
I don't intend to argue with you over it at all. I just wanted to make certain that you all were aware that the plan was revised to show, we'll do the work that's shown on there. If you want to keep it in, that's fine. I just don't want it to be interpreted to go beyond the scope of the jurisdiction of this commission, because the next condition does exactly that. So that's why. If you want to keep it, that's fine.
I feel better. I'd like to go out there and bring my plan and say they did what they were supposed to do.
Very good.
Not go out there and say, what the heck went on? Or have the contractor say, well, nobody showed it to me.
well, that should be handled as a pre-construction.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think we got it covered in a few areas of the condition.
All right, so number 40 with regard to the hammerhead, and I did see some emails go back and forth between the planning board, and just so that, I think everybody here should be aware of how the stormwater piece of all, that was an initiative by the North and South River Watershed to incorporate the stormwater bylaw for the town of Scituate a number of years ago. And it was decided then that the planning board and the Conservation Commission would work together to institute that stormwater bylaw. And that we'd work together to do that. We had a number of agents come and go during that period of time, but we worked with the planning board to develop that stormwater piece. And one of the things that we concluded was that if there were no wetlands, no conservation issues, the planning board would handle the stormwater piece. If we had jurisdiction, then the Conservation Commission would do the stormwater piece, and that way it would eliminate people having to do that twice. It does seem, and so the issue came up of the hammerhead and whether we had jurisdiction, and we don't, I mean, that's the whole process to figure out if a hammerhead should be, part of it's the DPW, the fire department, there's a whole bunch of folks that weigh in on that. And I think it was appropriate for this commission to weigh in and say, we'd like to have minimal amount of impervious surfaces on the plan, and that's why we would promote a hammerhead over a cul-de-sac. Now, if there was a compelling reason to have a cul-de-sac, say there were more houses or more traffic or something else, certainly that's the planning board's purview, not ours. But I think we're just saying the obvious, that we just don't want to see any more impervious surfaces than is necessary, provided the lot can be done safely. You know, there's other things they're doing, like a fire hydrant and whatnot, that we don't weigh in on either. But I think that's important to remember why we're doing it. What concerns me is that I'm seeing pieces in this stormwater piece that I don't recall as part of the bylaw that we had originally instituted. We came up with a stormwater bylaw a number of years ago, and it was fairly simple, with the idea that we'd keep water going off onto other people's properties and and it seems to have evolved into much more than that, which I'm not quite sure how it got to that point. And so it seems like we have two directions to take with the stormwater piece. If someone comes before Concom, it's not quite the same stormwater piece as if they go before the planning board, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. And at some point, I'd like to address that. Not that we need one more pain in the neck thing to do, but we did agree on how the stormwater piece would be put forward. And I'm not seeing that in some of the pieces that are on here, and that's a concern. Because
Just one comment on that. I think we started out by looking at what can both departments do on low-impact development.
Right.
So that was the first thing. We're trying to get rid of the large basins and hookups into the town drainage and just be able to capture it on site.
Right.
Swale. So I think both departments are using similar strategies for that. This stormwater permit has as much of the language from the planning board language in their permits that applies. So several of these conditions came from them. And then we tailored the rest to, wetland protection part of stormwater.
But I just don't remember seeing some of these when we initially put this piece together, and I'm not quite sure how more of these pieces have gotten into this bylaw than what we initially approved.
If I might, Paul just informed me before the meeting tonight, and I was completely unaware of this, but apparently on the town's website, there's a form of a stormwater permit approval.
In the stormwater calculations, and we've done this 2 or 3 times, I think Pat has a copy. What we do is put the stormwater application form in there, and it's signed by us, the applicant. The last line is the signature block of the Conservation Commission to approve the permit itself. So there is a physical permit.
Right.
You have it on the paper, but I've never seen you sign that. But how you just add to your comment, Frank, the overall goal of the stormwater bylaw is to ensure that if anyone comes under the threshold of that, the goal is that any development that's subject to the stormwater bylaws that will have an increase in the volume of water, that increase in volume of water has to stay on site.
Right.
So you don't add any more water.
Well, we don't want to put pollutants into the drainage system, which ultimately wind up in the reservoir
But also, as part of doing that, you also have to treat your water, and there's many ways you can do it. So whether it's conservation or planning board, you have the same goal.
We should. I think the goal is the same. My question is, it seems like,
It's the same regulations, just a matter of how one agency interprets it as far as the approval process.
And I was completely unaware of any emails. I didn't think that the planning board dealt with the issue of stormwater. Paul's been at every meeting, I haven't been, because they knew that you were the jurisdictional authority.
Right.
So
and
I don't know.
we want to work together. There's absolutely no, we're all town boards, and we want to make sure we work together, and that we're not, as the planning board was concerned with our issues of the hammerhead, we want to be sure that it, so that's not what this is about. I just want to make sure that we follow what we're supposed to follow. And that's why I'm trying to state it this way. I just want to be sure that we're both following the same rules and doing this.
This one, there was an overlap because it was part of a subdivision and it was one lot that was carved off. So this is a kind of a hybrid for.
But the other one, I mean, I wasn't involved with Studley Farm, but it was, we had pieces of that we reviewed, and the planning board did pieces, and we tried to work cooperatively to get through that. So I'm just a little puzzled.
Yeah, that's under the state stormwater regulations, so this is separate because it's smaller than 4-lot subdivision. That one, we really have to work closely with them because it's a state regulation.
And that's great. I'm not saying that, part of the reason for us doing this was not to have like duplication and incur people additional costs. I mean, this happens to be a young man that's trying to build a single-family home on his property, and I just don't want to see these things get turned into some, additional layers and more expense and cost and all that. We want to meet the law, but I don't think we should put undue things on folks either.
Just to piggyback off that, Frank, and I know that this is probably a topic for a larger discussion for this commission, but I understand that you guys are still working on kind of the template of whatever the stormwater permit is going to be, and I provided a few comments to Pat today that I asked the board's indulgence to perhaps maybe incorporate into that template, since this is the first go-around on this permit here. And I kind of spelled it out. I think Pat probably shared that with you, but I just want to I want to avoid a situation where there's an overcomplication of a fairly straightforward permit and straightforward regulations, and I'm concerned that kind of things are kind of inching their way into, conditions are inching their way into stormwater permit approvals that probably are more appropriate in other areas.
Right. Yeah.
In particular for this project, most certainly, and that's why I addressed them.
Okay. So, with regards to this piece, it was 39 through 42, and we're in agreement that 39 stay, but not 40, 41, or 42?
Well, there's a 43 now.
And then 43,
That's gonna stay.
what is?
43?
43 wasn't an issue
Okay.
for me.
43 is not an issue.
Yeah, right.
39 was the one you and I just discussed about the
Right,
trees.
right, so that's gonna stay.
40 concerned the hammerhead, which I don't think should stay.
Why are we talking about, I mean, ultimately, the layout of the hammerhead will work out with the surveyor and the fire department and whoever.
I don't know.
As long as it doesn't increase impervious areas, or they can show that it works fine, I don't think.
No, I
Okay.
wasn't part of that.
And then, I mean, I don't know, we build houses, and you can't build a house with a you can't do a foundation with a bobcat.
No, I didn't put those in. They weren't
And to
mine.
tell people what kind of machinery, it could be quite easily that a larger excavator could do less intrusive damage than a small machine running all over the place, and I think that should be up to the person that's doing the
No, I
job.
have no problem with those being.
Okay.
And then 42 is, it was kind of, you can do one or the other, and we're happy to do the mitigation.
Plantings
the
are good.
The shrub planting mitigation plan.
And that's in the appropriate place, you had already started to show that,
Yeah.
so, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So much for that quick one.
I said, one quick question on Hammerhead design. The reason that we left something in there about Hammerhead is if they were going back and decided to do a cul-de-sac, that changes stormwater a bit. So we'd want some type of, say, whether it's a revised plan or an amendment or something.
No, I met with the fire chief, and he sent a recommendation in to have the hammerhead. We never wanted to, or the applicant never wanted to have a fully paved cul-de-sac.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if it changes, regardless of fire, from this point forward, if it goes back to a cul-de-sac, we would want another look at this to see if stormwater numbers still work. That's all.
We agree that that's,
Okay.
that's appropriate, yeah.
Okay, so we'll change the second line in that.
Okay. All right.
So I could make a motion to accept the orders with the
Modifications?
modifications. We've,
Omit the three.
41, 42 have been taken out completely, and 40 will be reworded, Pat?
Yeah, and 42 stays. 41
No,
is,
43 is staying.
yes,
42 is staying.
42 is
No,
staying.
42 is the
No.
one.
Just the second half of 42. There's no reason to have the first half about an easement over the property if it's not going to be granted.
Oh, I don't see that on here.
Yeah,
Oh.
they're gonna
You have a
provide, they're gonna
revised-
provide mitigation
You're
for 42.
looking at the revised one that we're suggesting.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
they're gonna provide
And I'm
mitigation for
looking at the
42.
old
Right.
one. So that's why I'm saying those are going.
I think that was something that I tossed early in the game. just
Yes,
as
you
a-
did. Well, what the heck, why not try it? But at least we're gonna get something.
And Penny, on that, just also, the motion probably would also need to accept the stormwater permit as revised by me today.
Okay, except the stormwater permit as revised.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, that was quick, Pat.
I'm sorry.
Half hour later.
For me, it is. I like to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay. Right. Sure. Okay. Here, Pat, do you want to hang on to this one? We're going to stick with the agenda, though, right? We got Hannah at 117
We
Glen.
have schools.
Oh, all right,
School at an appointment time.
all right.
In Lake,
Scituate Schools?
oh, Scituate Schools.
Yeah, I guess they trump a couple others.
Go outside.
Paul, you're out of here.
I'm doing work.
Yeah, well, the schools are coming in. I guess you don't, Jeff got out of here, but you didn't.
Run.
These guys are better dressed than you are, Paul, sorry.
Let's get on Paul.
Make sure they all leave with their shirts on.
Yeah, you go. You didn't see Jeff looking over his shoulder when he got out of here, did you?
I heard that.
You know what, if you put on the other side, this, the TV picks it up.
Do that.
Get rid of the stuff, right?
It's all part of the records.
Pat's desk out of the way.
Hi. I can sneak up front. Hi, John. How you doing? How are you? Good.
We need to push his desk down.
So this is an informal discussion. I don't need to read anything.
No, you don't.
Good evening.
Good evening, and I'm John McCarthy, Superintendent of Schools, if for those of you who don't know who I am. And we have John Richardson, who's with Dorn Whittier Architects, as well as Don Walter with Dorn Whittier, and Don is also a Scituate resident as well. So the purpose of coming before you tonight for an informal discussion is twofold. Primary purpose is to get some feedback on one of our potential sites to locate the Gates Middle School, and that would be in a co-located situation here on the high school campus. And so we need some feedback on the vernal pool and what we're looking to do relative to that. So that's the primary purpose. Secondary purpose is really to see if you want to provide any feedback on any of the other 3 sites that we have, or 3 designs that we have. We're in a process now called the feasibility study, where we have to reduce the 4 down to 1 choice. That will ultimately go before the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and then hopefully in the fall or late fall before the town voters. So, so tonight really it's to kind of get some feedback primarily again on the vernal pool issue, and I'm now going to turn it over to the architects, and they'll take you through what they're looking to do.
So it's your pleasure, if you want, I can do a quick overview of the 3 other sites also, and end on the high school and talk about the vernal pool, just to give you a sense. I know you have a full agenda, so it's
I think we should just stick with the
Vernal pool.
Vernal pool?
Well, I think, unless, is
Start
there any other wetlands issues at the other sites that we?
On the Ellis site, there are some wetlands issues, you know, that we're, you know, obviously working around. So maybe we could show you how we're doing that, but, yeah.
what we discovered at the Ellis site were three wetlands. The 2 surprise ones were at the corner of 3A and Man Lot, and then a smaller one further up. And when we met earlier, we talked about where they were flagged. So from a jurisdictional point of view, the school's not in any of the buffer for that at all. Public safety is a different different issue, but we're not here to discuss that tonight, so.
Right.
Right.
But we can give you just a quick peek at that. just
Sure.
So we can show you how that's affected. But the three sites are the existing gates, school site, the high school site, and then, of course, the Ellis.
And there's no wetlands at the Gates site that we're,
No.
No.
okay.
Problematic.
Oh, I'm fine.
Okay. So, 3A, man lot, down here, school controls about 22 acres of that property. For context, this is where public safety is currently being shown. The larger wetland, again, both created by drainage, is in this corner here. We originally had the building pushed closer to the intersection. We pulled it away to get out of that wetland buffer. Second wetland is here, which is much smaller. Certainly would be some jurisdictional concerns there. So those are the wetlands that are on this site, except for what we discovered that runs off the back of the school property down the far end of Man Lot. So the school and all the development is we suspect is outside even the buffer in that case.
All right.
So.
So the two front ones are really small, isolated wetland. We had this conversation.
Exactly.
They're pretty small.
Yeah, this one's very small. This is a little bit bigger in the corner.
Right. But the back piece, Pat, is it BVW?
I haven't been out there.
Okay.
So,
All right. It's like, you can see it from Man Lot Road. It's okay.
So that's just a quick look
Yep.
at the Ellis site. At the high school site, what we're proposing is what's called a co-located middle high school, in that they'll be joined. Programs will still be separate, but it'll be a new middle school attached to the existing high school. And because there's some additional space in the high school, we'd actually utilize some of that high school space for the middle school, making the overall building more efficient in terms of its programmatic use. So just from a site planning perspective and where the building's going, Town Hall, Police, and Fire, 3A and First Parish Road, access into the high school is currently right here. Secondary access off of First Parish Road. All the buses run along down the right-hand side. So this blue would be the new 6th through 8 middle school. The thought is to bring the 6th grade up out of the elementary schools, include them in a middle school which is more traditional in nature, having the 3 grades. And they're set up in teams or houses, so you have a 6th grade, and this is all 2 stories. 6th grade team, 7th grade team, 8th grade team, with all the...
You know what? We could probably just stick to how it pertains to the wetlands.
Yeah, just giving you a sense of what's there. So...
You'll have plenty of time to run this spiel, but...
Just trying to give you some... So the vernal pool. This is the estimated edge of the vernal pool. We do have a survey that's done, and this is pretty darn close to that.
Yep.
As you know, as the vernal pool exists, it's developed right up to the edge of the water, when the water's there. In fact, it's mowed into the vernal pool when it's dry. So what we're proposing to do is locate the building. The building itself is about 125 feet from the edge of the vernal pool. We want to naturalize around the pool, and right now we're showing about a 50-foot buffer that would be completely naturalized. And the thought is that the other grass around there would be secondary, perhaps mowed, perhaps not, but would not be developed, certainly would not be used for playfield as it's done now. One of the driving forces to the school from a programmatic perspective is to try to get more outdoor education, so we've created places to allow students to get outdoors, and we're hoping that we might be able to create some sort of a dock that would bring students down to the water's edge to observe, take water samples, things of that nature. That's what's being shown here as a possibility. And then perhaps a small walking path that connects the main entrance of the school back over to a sidewalk here, which leads to the high school. So that's the quick hit on what we're trying to do and how we're actually trying to enhance what's there now as opposed to keep its current situation and degrade it further.
And really kind of use it as a nature's classroom. It's a resource that currently right now is not used. it provides an opportunity for a sort of a nature's classroom, if we can find a way to enhance that as part of an educational program.
Pat, can I ask to be excused for a second? Pat, can you see anything negative, or anything negative in this plan?
I was just wondering if there's an area of trees in the back, are they to remain in this back corner?
The wooded area by the,
Right up
playground?
close to the edge of the pool there, looks
Oh,
like,
yes.
yeah.
On the other side, I don't think we've shown all the trees.
Yeah.
trees that are currently around the vernal pool.
Where that buffer, the light blue is, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
They'd still be there.
Yeah.
So is the answer that you don't see any issue there?
I mean, I think there's probably going to be some questions because this has gone through the permitting process in the past, this area, so there'll be some old files that we will have to check. But as far as the outdoor classroom, it's done in other towns, you know, boardwalks and things like that are done. You have to look at what's already disturbed around here and consider it's not pristine all around the area. There may be some flexibility, but it's going to involve other departments in addition to us. But I think we're at the point where we're interested in hearing about it.
Yeah. Just a little bit of history. I mean, obviously, this was created for drainage for the high school, but Pat enlightened me that detention areas or whatever that were built long ago can become a vernal pool, wetland, whatever they evolve to. Today, if that were developed as a, say, a detention area, it wouldn't be. It would be a stipulation that it would not become that, so it could be maintained. So it's kind of a little tricky in that we can't really maintain these things that were originally created as a drainage area. But, you know, as it was pointed out, right now, the DPW has been mowing to its edge. I mean, until a few years ago, it really wasn't recognized as a vernal pool. A question came up when we were trying to look at doing the ball fields as to whether it was, and John Richardson, who's passed away, was an environmental consultant who came out and did a report for the commission and recognized it, and subsequently Pat's looked at it, and there's not much question that it's a vernal pool. But, you know, as you can see, it really hasn't been treated or protected very much, and so the consideration would be when we discussed out there at the site, if a nice buffer could be constructed around it and protected, and then a grass area around that, it's by far better than how it's being dealt with now. So we're not endorsing the whole project one way or the other. My kids are all long gone from this, but just in terms of protecting this as a resource, that seems like a reasonable...
Absolutely.
I did ask the question, though, and I don't think anybody really knows it, whether or not this is fed by any under drains, whether there's anything coming off of roof. Do we know whether this gets feed from, like, parking drainage, or?
We suspect that might be the case. We're not sure, but whatever we do, we would avoid bringing that into the vernal pool. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be a detention basin, so it would just be a vernal pool.
Okay.
So our stormwater management plan would be different.
Right. If we do choose this option and then go forward with a design, we'll do a full our civil engineer will do a full stormwater analysis for new development.
So we have precedent in this area, right, that we have to figure out and consider, correct?
Right.
Okay, but it makes sense from a standpoint of protecting something that doesn't get much protection now, and I think we have some, you know, we have a 125-foot setback for a building or whatever, so I think that would be the critical one for you to...
Right, and that's what we're trying to maintain, because we understand that there's a precedent that the board has set previously. It's important to note that right now, it's just about the edge of building that's 125, so there would be some disturbance during construction.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you have jurisdiction within 250 feet of the vernal pool, so we'll be very careful with the protection of the pool during construction, pre-construction, post-construction, and so forth.
I think, though, I can speak for this commission, I think we're a fairly realistic board, and when you have a piece that already has much more disturbance around it, and you're looking to make it better in the process.
Yeah, I agree, totally.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Before, when they tried to use it as ball fields, there was only gonna be like a 40-foot buffer, and they wanted to fill. That's where the problem came in with them. And so we really have to try and keep the 125 as close, which is not just us, it's the state. And the only other thing, I do just want to point out that the walkway, I think, is a great idea, but it could not be a paved walkway.
Right,
It would have to be a...
More like a boardwalk.
Yeah, something like that, that's the only thing I just want you to make sure you're aware of from the get-go, that, you know, we're not gonna let you put...
Couldn't Natural Heritage recommend
Well,
materials
there
of what would
is,
be?
like, Ms. Divas just got a whole bunch of
Oh, okay.
recommendations.
Walkway guidelines, for your information.
Yeah, for his trail, but that's
I'll
all.
make
We want the walkway to be courteous, but also needs to be handicap accessible.
That's comedy.
As with the
What's that?
access
That's comedy.
to the
I
water's
said
edge.
comedy could suggest some
Exactly.
material.
Exactly. But I think you know, your key here is try to keep that 125, because we were very strict on that when rec wanted to put a field in. It wasn't gonna work, because there was no way they would, stay within our buffer. Stay out of our buffer, I should say.
Okay.
We're good.
Excellent feedback.
But, you know, I'd love to see it used as an outdoor classroom. That's
a
always
great
been one
idea.
of my...
Well, regardless of what project you, or concept you ultimately settle on, this commission would really appreciate the opportunity to work with the schools through some sort of environmental studies program or
Right.
whatever, and encourage you to incorporate even a small piece of that into your curriculum.
We're looking to do it. I mean, we're using a project-based learning approach, so we are going to be looking for a lot of projects for our students in the community, and certainly land and sea are really, two areas that we're focusing on in a curriculum, so.
And I think it's terrific, because I just came back from a vernal pool seminar in Belmont that was put on by the Audubon, and it was fabulous.
Yeah, it's a great learning opportunity. It's right here, it's right in our backyard, sitting here, and
Nobody's using it.
no one's using it, so.
Well, hopefully, it'll enlighten folks so that down the road, they'll appreciate why these are so important.
Right.
Great. Steve?
Yeah, I'd just caution you to, before you go through a huge design on this, to make sure that there is an outlet to that vernal pool that goes through the parking lot, and leads over to well 19.
Yep.
Make sure that it's not considered a tributary to the reservoir, because if it is, we have a 150-foot non-disturbance zone. The ball field might be different because it's not a building, but if the school's only 125 feet away and that comes into play, you may need to push another 25 feet back. So I'd verify that before you do a big design on it.
Okay.
Great, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
gentlemen.
Coming in, gentlemen.
Because if you don't find that pipe,
Delete that from the... There is that pipe. That's the superintendent of
Thank you
school,
very
right?
much.
Yeah. Boy, and that guy.
Hannah, 117 Glades Road, septic. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
You should hear him too. Oh, my God, he's good.
Do you have anybody here for, is it Hannah?
117 Glades.
On May 21st, 2014, 7 PM, the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Stephen Hanna, trustee, to repair a septic system on property located at 117 Glades Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
For the record again, Jeff Bassett. This is another septic repair, Glades Road at number 117. It's a small property, it's less than 4,000 square feet in size. It also has a 10-foot wide easement on the southerly side of the property. So Glades Road is here, and then there's that concrete retaining wall, the boulder retaining wall, and then the ocean. We filed an NOI for this one. We're outside of the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh, but it is entirely within a barrier beach as well as FEMA Zone AO. So So in this case, they have a cesspool, which is believed to be under this concrete pad here, and it will fail a Title V inspection because it will intercept the groundwater table. So we dug a test pit next to the house, and we decided to put a new tank behind the house, and then we'll put 2 trenches to make up the leaching field under the house. There's about 6 feet of headroom under there. So it can be done. There'll be a little bit of hand digging, a little bit difficult to install, but it can be done. And we chose to put these under the house because it'll be a little bit protected, and there's traffic and parking throughout this entire property. So I think that's kind of the most ideal location. The property is currently, there's really no vegetation on the property. It's all sand and cobblestones. And I think that's it. Any questions?
It's an improvement from what's there.
Put a septic system in some of these places.
You have to.
It's unbelievable. No, of course, but it's amazing. Has Board of Health approved this yet?
This is another one we filed with them a month ago. And
so
I
we're
left a
waiting
voicemail.
on that.
I gotta believe it is, but I can't say that for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're with a part-time agent now, so.
Oh, that's right, yeah, I forgot.
Richard?
Other than that needs to be accomplished, no questions.
Good.
Just waiting for the approval.
Where did Pat go?
Said he was outside for
I'll let them know.
Anybody in the audience?
Well, Frank, does he have questions?
No, I don't think, other than the poor guy that's got to install it.
Oh, jeez. Can you imagine?
Okay.
They're gonna use a little mini excavator that doesn't have a cab on top, so it only sits about this high.
Right, right.
Talked to a couple guys about it. I'm
Yeah.
excited what they can do.
Oh, they'll get it. Okay.
Okay, I guess.
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it's subject to the Board of Health.
Board of Health
Yeah,
approval, right.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Burke, 50 Surfside wetland delineation.
This we need that for, right?
Yeah, on May 21st, 2014, Town Hall Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Brian Burke to delineate a wetland on property located at 50 Surfside Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Did we say something wrong at the last piece?
Sorry.
I thought you were out in the hall mopping up for us.
Keep you out of jail.
We're grounded.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Maravito, representing the applicant owner for the Red. This is a vacant piece of land shown on the assessor's map as number 50 Surfside Road. These are the homes along the beach on Surfside Road, the ocean's over here. This would be the edge of the Squishman Pond. Brad Holmes flagged the wetland line, which is an existing lawn area. This is a relatively old site in the sense that it really predates the Wetlands Protection Act. When we flagged the wetlands, this is all lawn, and Brad couldn't be here tonight because he had to be in another town, but when he did flag it, he noted that there's no wetland vegetation in the lawn area, and because it does predate the Wetlands Protection Act, which was established in 1968, this is not considered altered land. Having said that, he did not look at soils, and he did look at hydrology, because you don't have to do that. It's not altered land.
He did or did not
Did
look at
not.
soils?
He did not.
So how do you determine a line that's all vegetation?
There's fragmites in this area here, so it's essentially the edge of the lawn for the most part. The purpose of this application is simply to establish the edge of the resource area being the boarded vegetative wetland. The land is in land subject to coastal storm flows because of the elevation. It's also on a map barrier beach. But those aren't resource areas that we're asking to have reviewed by the commission. This area over here is the edge of the driveway. Everybody there's vacant land in this area here. So, with that, I'll end my presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Penny?
I'm pretty familiar with this piece of property. It's all, and it has been lawn area since back in the 50s. I am concerned. I think there's been fill going on. I'm not real recent, but I do think fill's in there, and I kind of would like to see some soil samples done before I take this as the wetlands line. That's just my feeling.
Richard?
Richard?
Exactly the same.
I'd like to clarify it just for my own kind of knowledge. So the point here is that because this piece of property predates the wetlands regulations, that they are not, it's not subject to the same wetland regulations that we're enforcing now. So therefore, it allows you to declare that it's unaltered land because you don't have to go within the guidelines of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Well,
Okay.
in a case like this, and I spoke to Brad about it, he said if there was wetland vegetation inside the lawn area, and he could look at it because he had predominance of wetland vegetation. He said that's not the case. And section 1055 is very clear about land that has been disturbed by cutting, filling, or cultivation. But that's all after 1968. There are also changes in the Wetlands Act in 83 and I believe 93 or 95, which address situations like this. But this is after the act. There's also a court case that he's referred to that I don't think you have a case about, and it also addresses situations like this as well. We did a project on Mary Ann Doherty's property for her son, and they had a lawn going right to the salt marsh, and they were allowed to continue to use the lawn and mow and maintain it because it was there prior to the Wetlands Protection Act, where they were approved that and demonstrated. This is the same situation here. Going back in time, I was told by the owner that this land was used by the Coast Guard station and the Coast Guard people that's across the street to do training. And it's always been filled in, it's always been along this. The point of making is the Wetlands Act is clear. If it was filled before the Wetlands Protection Act, then it is considered to be altered. And that's why Brad used the methods that he did use to determine the wetlands.
Say that again, that's why Brad used what?
That's why Brad used the methods that he did employ to determine where the edge of the BVW was.
The method that he did employ was just determining that there was Phragmites, where the Phragmites was,
Yes,
correct?
yes. I can read you what he did here, just so I'm clear.
Right.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Am I missing a piece?
We'll get. No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, this is the report, he does say in the report that the BVW was delineated in accordance with the DEP regulations of 1055 pertaining to the delineation of BVW wetlands. The delineation was performed by analyzing vegetation, hydrology within 12 inches of the surface, and soil conditions within 20 inches of the surface. The BVW contains hydric soils and dominant wetland indicator plants consisting of common reeds. Flags 1 to 12 were placed at the landward edge of the BVW on April 18th. The line is delineated. So what he's saying is, where he placed the wetland line was the edge of the hydrology and the soils that we used to determine where the edge of that line was, from east to west direction.
So he did do hydrology, because I thought we said initially he didn't.
he did say.
Yeah, okay.
That's what he says in the report that you have.
I get it.
Will you leave this on, sir?
Also has the field data forms in there. I believe.
Pat, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's a fairly big decision whether this is going to be a buildable lot or not, and it depends on where the wetland line is. I'd be interested in looking more into it about the date of the establishment of when you could, use vegetation only, and also about the court case that Paul mentioned. But regardless of that, the flags are missing when I went out there. There was one yellow flag where there was probably a test pit, and then there was one or two of the black and pink flags that Brad uses. There's no indication of where he did a soil test on the upland side. On the wetland side, there's a yellow flag, and that's what he usually uses. There's also some fill that's more recent than, the start of the Wetland Protection Act. There's fill along the Phragmites. There's some spots out there that have been filled. So, I'd be interested in maybe having an independent look at this, because there's a lot of questions.
Okay.
Is there a way of determining approximately how long fill was put in?
Well, I had checked with Paul. I was wondering if there were older pictures of the lot. Sounds like Penny has seen the lot with a lawn. If something's been kept as a lawn for a certain number of years, it does become a lawn. But if there's been fill since that time to raise it up and, fill closer to the wetland or into the wetland, then that kind of changes things.
See, I'm going back to the end of Sunset, and that was filled a long, long time ago, and that's all wetlands, even though they're farming it. So I really want to look into this, because I do not want to make the wrong decision here of where the actual wetlands are.
Because if you dug a deep enough pit, you'd probably hit marsh, but that doesn't mean it's wetland under the current Wetland Act.
I understand that, but I'm just concerned that, has there been more recent filling going on? I'm not sure, but I think we need to look into it more, Pat.
Yeah. And if he had field data forms or soil tested information that we could review. It's barrier beach, but it is also land subject to coastal storm flowage, so.
It is, but those, it is in the FEMA flood zone, and it's also on the barrier beach, but those two resource areas would only dictate the type of construction that you have to employ if you were to build in those areas, piles, or I'd have to do piles or something to go there. But one of the reasons they're doing this, when the sewer was put in on the state, all these places lots were assessed $20,000, stuff like that, for a sewer connection. If you don't appeal that within 6 months after the final results come out, you're stuck with it. You can't appeal it. You have to pay that $20,000, period. And there's no other avenue of appeal. I fell in that situation myself personally. And it's a very strict state law. So this is how it's with us. We talked to Neil Duggan about this. Whether that would be buildable, and we have to determine whether that wetland line is.
Is it in the velocity zone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Brian Burke, and so my name is on the application there. I'd just like to say a few words. This piece of property, we call it the field, has been in the family for probably 75 years. I grew up on the pond. I still remember as a 10-year-old getting my first rowboat. We knew every inch of the pond. We used to row over to the old snackery across the pond to get an ice cream. That field, as kids, we played baseball on that field. We, in the last 10 years ago, for at least 10 years, I put a little 5-hole golf course on that field that the kids would learn how to play golf. We put a big plaque up on the for the hole-in-ones. That field has always been there. I have pictures of like I said, the Coast Guard practicing, with their beacher buoys, with the rope type of thing. When you're asking about filling, there's no filling has ever been done over there, zero. The only thing you have over there is some grass clippings from mowing the lawn, and then, as anyone knows, living on Surfside or any other street, the stones come over, and if I had a nickel for every stone, I've had to rake and put in a wheelbarrow, and maybe they go and they get put along the edge of your grass. That's basic lawn maintenance. But it's very clear. Here's an aerial photo, a recent photo, where you can see the field. There's 15 feet of the tall, we call them the reeds, going around the edge. The field's been there forever. My grandfather built the duplex across the street way back in the 50s. As Paul said, this field, the way it is, predates that Wetlands Act, and nothing has been done except to maintain it. As a matter of fact, the field has gotten smaller because anyone knows mowing their lawn, you're always coming in 2 or 3 inches from the wheel, and it just keeps coming in, coming in. So the field actually was bigger when I was a kid. So we're talking about a piece of grass that's been there. We now have the sewer coming down the street. We've got the betterment. We need to get an answer here. As far as building something, I have 0 plans to build there. My mom has 0 plans. We haven't even thought we want to hang on to it. We provide the field for parking. When people have cocktail parties or whatever, they call us, can we use the field to park? Sure. All the kids, if you drive by there any time, the kids are out there playing lacrosse. We let everyone use the field. It's known as the field. We just want to get the basic ruling that this gentleman, Brad, came out and marked the edge of the reeds. And Paul has now done his work based on that. And we're looking to say, that's the field, that's where the reeds are, that's the wetlands. Everything else is dry. It's been dry since for 75 years. Here's an overhead picture if you need to get a little bit of an idea of what it is, but no filling.
Okay.
I was one of the ones who mentioned fill, and it might be right that it was stone that washed in that got pushed. It's in the marsh, and it looks, it could be fill from anywhere, but it could be the cobble that washed in there. So in that case, it would be not an intentional fill, but
Okay.
there is debris and stuff there.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm in a butter as well.
Your name?
My name's Dave Toohey. I live at 46 Surfside Road.
Sure.
And I'm a rookie at this, so I really might be premature. The only thing I wanted to mention is during nor'easters, it's a heavy-duty flow area from splashover from the Atlantic. And it comes sort of across our property and right onto this field, more or less, and sort of fills up the field and sits there for a while and then leaches out.
Okay.
It's just I didn't really know what this whole proposal was about. However, if there is potential building there, that should be taken into account as to where this floodwater goes.
Okay, so what this hearing for tonight, what they're asking for is that they want to approve where the wetland line is first. Oftentimes, it's the first step in a process. It could also be as a way to determine whether it's non-buildable or not. I mean, we've had people come to the commission wanting to confirm that they have a wetlands line so they don't have to pay more property taxes. So it can go a number of different ways, but it is important to make sure that that wetlands right and the resource areas are correct for whatever the future holds.
Sure.
For this piece of property, whether it's built on or not.
Right. And I'm sure if there is a proposal to build there, there'll be hearings.
Then there'd be a notice of intent.
Right.
No, I'm fine.
So that whole process would move on, but once the wetlands line is determined and approved by the commission, unless it's proved that there was really erroneous information given, that wetlands line would hold. So it is important to get that correct now, because...
I've seen the pink and black flags around.
Right. So, for right now, that's what's in front of us, is determine exactly where that wetlands line is. As Pat points out, there's a lot of different considerations here. It's too bad that Brad's not here tonight to maybe explain this a little bit better. I'd like to have the opportunity to at least have Pat talk with Brad to make his case as to why he feels that that is the line, whether he, you know, whether he's done borings. If it's a case of someone actually, though, you're aware of this, Paul, as well, if we have cases where we're trying to determine a wetlands line and there's some consideration whether it could be one way or the other, oftentimes the commission would then get a consultant to review that and do the same process and see whether or not they agree with that, that line. I don't know whether you think that's necessary in this
I mean,
one.
it's a very big lot. I think if someone were to come out, they might, one person might say, well, you know, I got some reeds here, the other person might say, well, I've got them 2 feet away. I mean, if you look at a picture, if anyone's been around the pond, I mean, your grass goes and then the reeds start. I mean, it's pretty, and I was there the day Brad was there, and he put the things right on the reeds. Some of them blow off. It's that time of year when all the reeds are brown and the new green ones are coming up, and unfortunately, these things blow off. But as far as, you know, where the reeds begin, I mean, I don't know if you've been out there yet. You know, I mean, we're talking feet, a couple of feet.
Well, and sometimes that's how a wetlands line can go.
Okay.
If, we've seen consultants come out and look at it, and it's not like a survey line where you say it's 126 feet in one direction or whatever. It's up to a scientist to look at this, and one person can look at the coloring of the soil or the type of vegetation, and a conservative person might put it here. A more liberal look might move it 10 feet in a different direction. You know, I haven't seen too many lines get the distance of maybe 20 feet or so.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
You know, it is unfortunate Brad wasn't here. I'm not about this, but some of those flags are down. What I'd like to suggest is that Brad go back out there with Patrick and put the flags back. They've got to go back anyway, so you can see where the line is. And he can go on a more discussion on it.
Yeah, you go into detail about how he came up with that line. Yeah.
Do you have the time to do that, or would you rather have him do it?
No, I could do that because I'd also like to look into the soils and hydrology issue of whether, you know, if it's an old lot like that, you can just use the vegetation and you can't. I don't know enough about that, but that would give me time to look at that, and then I could meet with him. Because if it's a single-family home and it's a fairly straightforward line, a lot of times we don't ask for a second wetland person. If, you know, if I go out with him and we can get some answers.
I'll go with you, it's right down the street.
Yeah.
From where I live.
On the other hand, if it involves some, you know, testing and some soils specialists, then, you know, we might have to do that, but. And I can also make a call to DEP. I mean, nobody's trying to, you know, take a buildable or usable lot away from anybody. You know, it's just we want to make sure we get it right so that we're protecting abutters and the property owners.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Let's, we'll do that. That will keep it a little simpler to start with. I'm not saying that's the end of it, but I think we should at least try that approach first. So what that means, essentially, the fellow that marked these lines will go with our agent. They can take a look together. They'll either have some agreement, or they'll decide that it's more complicated. In that case, the town would come back to the applicant.
Sure.
And get.
I think I'm here prematurely anyway, because if there is a construction plan, I think that's when we'll.
Well, no, it's, I mean, this is this line is the first piece, because down the road, someone could, once that's established, then that's a piece that you can't really argue later on.
Right.
So it's certainly important to know that now.
And then would that be the time to bring the water, the splash overflow?
Yeah, it'll become,
that becomes stormwater.
Yeah, there's really no, it's irrelevant at this stage, because nothing's happening. That's a whole nother.
that would be back up in front of us anyway.
Yeah, I understand. And you understand that, we have a $20,000 betterment for the sewer, we need to get some answers.
Right. Right.
I mean,
If it's not buildable, you don't want to pay it.
that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's, we just.
When
we're
does
here-
that timeframe
If it
run
is
out?
buildable, then you'd pay it for the future lot or something like that.
What's that timeframe?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, we'd like to get Brad and get
Yeah.
Pat out there just to
Yeah.
look at it and then just.
Okay, absolutely.
Yep.
All right,
We could set it up for 2 weeks from now. Is there a deadline on the betterment issue? I mean, is there?
Well, no, I mean, that's a little further out, but I'd like to
We don't want
try
to
and.
miss it if it's,
No, I think they've got some time to negotiate that. But we've had this instance in other cases, say along Countryway when they were doing Greenbush.
Right.
There was a couple places where they were gonna put, have a betterment, and the whole thing was a big wetland. And it was obviously that it wasn't ever gonna be a house there. But they, the town didn't know, or the person that laid the thing out, it was just a lot on a map. And so they put a sewer stub and wanted the people to pay for a betterment on something that they could never.
That's what's happening is, and so,
Yeah, it's reasonable, sure.
okay.
so what do
Thank
you
you.
want to do, Pat, June 4th, or
Sure.
move it out?
Fourth would be
You think
fine,
you
yeah.
can do that? Okay, so I will make a motion to continue for,
50 Surfside.
till 6:50 on June 4th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Schwartz, 14 Kimberly Road, new build continued.
Back again. Jeff, need a hand? It's just neighbors. No, look at.
So this is the, this right
Shouldn't, this is not a big deal. I've been around on this one a long time ago. Yeah. This is not, it shouldn't be a big deal.
So this is additional conditions to treat the stormwater?
You gotta share.
Yeah.
Share, and you get your own.
Oh, aren't you important?
This updated?
We're nobody.
Yeah.
Updated, Pat? Thank you.
For the record again, Jeff Hassett with Morse Engineering. I'm here with the property owners, Paul and Kristen Schwartz. This property, as a reminder, is 14 Kimberly Road, and the applicant lives next door at number 16. We filed a request for an amended order of conditions. We originally spoke about this 2 meetings ago, and I'll just give you a brief overview. The intent in filing a request for this amended order of conditions is to create a more aesthetically pleasing finished product and reduce the construction and wetland impacts. The improvements that we propose are moving the house forward, reducing the amount of fill, eliminating the retaining walls, which previously went along both property lines and on either side of the driveway. Proposing a smaller driveway size, a smaller building footprint, and improving the stormwater by providing multiple roof drywall systems instead of the one, and by providing a crushed stone trench along the entire driveway. So this is our amended plan, and the original one is behind me. I can put that up if you want to look at that. At the last meeting, we talked about having a peer review the stormwater portion of this project. It went out to Josh Bose with Merrill Associates, who is here. And kind of based on that review, I concluded that this project, well, stormwater calculations and a report were previously submitted under the notice of intent filing for the original order of conditions. And therefore, it meets the intent of section 4.B.1, which makes it exempt from having to prepare a new full stormwater calculation. And that's because the stormwater report was already done, and the new plan conforms with the grading, improving the grading. The building envelope is a smaller building, that better complies with the setbacks. The impervious area, which we're reducing, and the drainage patterns, which we're maintaining. So also, through the comments from Josh, as well as yourselves and Pat, we filed the revised plans with a few improvements. The improvements are, we added flow arrows to the driveway to make it more clear to the contractor that the entire driveway should grade to the trench. We also were providing plantings within the depression in the back for stormwater. We're specifying that a test bit must be performed by a soil evaluator in the area of the drainage to verify that it is above the groundwater table. I'm proposing that for this rear portion, but then through additional conversations with the reviewer, I think it'd be a good idea to maybe do another one at the low point of the driveway during construction. We're also reducing the limit of work and the tree clearing by moving this basin closer to the house by about 12, 15 feet, just to kind of bring the tree line forward. There's really no reason to clear all the way into that triangular portion in the back. And we're providing arborvitaes along the property line here, and specifying an E1 sewer pump, which will be necessary. So I'd be glad to open it up to any questions.
Penny?
I'm okay right now.
Yeah.
Richard?
No, I like it a lot better and appreciate all the adjustments.
We might have an abutter here, because we had one the last time, yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, I remember asking for these, and I remember some concerns about abutters, so I think that this is addressing those issues. As far as I can see, I'd like to hear from the consultant.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Lisa? Pat, do you want to add anything to it?
I was just going to say, the latest, there were some comments from Josh, and then Jeff was addressing them, so if
Yeah,
you want
actually,
to
if
have
Josh is in the room and wants to,
Yeah, you didn't see it behind.
go ahead.
For the record, my name is Joshua Bose from Merrill Corporation, and we reviewed the project, the plan prior to this plan. We provided some comments to the record engineer, and we also then reviewed this current plan and issued our latest revision, our latest review letter today. I think one of the, it's probably a housekeeping comment, but I think it's an important comment for this project. It's sort of a unique situation where there was a previous order of conditions permit for this project by another engineer. There's a stormwater calculation booklet, the typical thick booklet of stormwater calculations that was associated with that previous development. I think it's important not to associate that with this particular design. I think this design is very similar. It's the same approach. It's got a lot of the similarities, but there are differences between this particular design and the calculations. So I think, for the record, I think it's important that the commission not apply or use that booklet, if you will, those calculations as documentation for this design. Because, if there's issues with the calculations, there's a separate engineer. He's not going to be liable for a new development. He's not going to, agree that this new design is applicable to his calculation. So I think it's just a...
This was the old Kimberly design?
Yes.
Okay.
10, I think it was 10 or 12 years ago.
Right.
Exactly. So, again, I think this is fully, in amended order conditions is certainly something the commission could consider for this, but I just don't want the record to reflect that those calculations apply to this design, because that would not be correct.
To the stormwater, does this meet our current stormwater bylaw?
That wasn't, we don't have an application or any review of that. It's the applicant's position. This is exempt from the stormwater bylaw because of the original order of conditions for this project.
So, just, I'm a little bit puzzled,
Now I
because
remember.
just, if we're not gonna go by our current stormwater, but we're not gonna go with the stormwater pieces that were put together for Kimberly, I'm just, give me the logic.
Under section 4.1, which I kind of briefly described, it's an exemption where, say you're doing a definitive subdivision and you've done all the stormwater calculations for the development, then you don't have to come back and do an individual stormwater report for each one of the lots. And it's my understanding that this project meets the intent of that, because a full stormwater calculation and all the reports was already done for this project. And it would just be like a subdivision lot where you show a typical house and a typical driveway. And as long as the new owner doesn't come in and build a much bigger house or a much larger driveway, then they fall under that previous permit. And in this case, we're kind of gone above and beyond to not only meet that, but improve it in any way possible.
Frank, we asked Josh in his review to, it's like a hybrid on this one too. It's to look at the lot that was approved under the original stormwater management plan and make sure that this new plan doesn't increase any kind of runoff or any kind of problems. If the new lot could satisfy what the old lot satisfied, it would be a compromise, because you really can't make them go through a stormwater bylaw permit on an amended order, so.
All right. Okay. Is there anybody in the audience for this? Anybody that wants, any other?
So, I mean, Josh, did you have, you had a point by point, and you had a couple of...
Sure, that was the housekeeping item. There were a few minor comments regarding the actual design. I think Jeff touched upon one of them, and that was adding an additional test pit along the stone trench, along the driveway. I think it's important to do that because the stone trench the bottom of it does encroach on the groundwater in some areas, so it makes no sense to dig into the groundwater to place a stone trench. It's just more work, more dewatering necessary right near in a wetland. So I think that's important that happens during construction and the trench is kept at or above the groundwater elevation. There will be some dewatering required on this project, so I thought it was important to have, whether it's in the conditions or it's provided by the engineer, measures for dewatering, where it's going to be dewatered, and how it's going to be handled, so that it's discharged appropriately and doesn't cause erosion or sedimentation to the wetland. The other consideration I think is important is this project it does require, the plans to require sump pump and foundation drains. The discharge point for that pipe, if you will, is important because I think it is going to need to be in or near the wetland for the elevations to work. So I think, that work to install that, yes, it's temporary, but it should be addressed. And then the swale in the back of the property, I think more information is warranted on the operation of the swale. It's certainly at or near the bottom is at or near groundwater. And, it's important for the commission to understand if it's going to hold water, if it's going to drain, if it would hold standing water, and how long it would hold standing water for. And that was my final comment.
Yeah, so the swale, it is above the groundwater table. It's not really designed to infiltrate. It doesn't have the full 2 feet most likely, but we will do a test bit during construction just to verify that. It's very shallow. It has a large surface area, so we calculate the time to infiltrate into the soil is based on the volume in the surface area. So I don't doubt that will drain within the standard 72 hours. I have here a dewatering detail which I'll submit, and I also have provided a long-term operation and maintenance plan for the whole stormwater system. It details how to maintain the roof dry wells, the gutter and the downspout system, the stone trenches, and the swales and that depression, meaning mowing it, trimming the plantings, removing any debris, sediment, or any erosion. So I'll submit that. And then lastly is where to discharge the sump pump or the foundation drain. I would propose that the sump pump must be outside of the 50-foot buffer. And for the foundation drain, we have raised the elevation of the foundation here. So we will keep that as far away from the wetland as possible. It will be an improvement from what was previously designed.
How's that sound to you, Josh?
Yeah, I think that, I haven't seen the dewatering plan yet, of course, but, I think both of those, the provisions to keep the sump pump out of 50-foot buffer is more than acceptable, and the foundation drain, the way, it depends on how it's built, what elevation it's put at, but if it's going to be kept out of the wetlands, it's going to be, the foundation drain is going to need to be kept higher than your standard foundation drain that sits at the footing. So, that it's not as much protection as you'd like to see, but it's really out of my jurisdiction. I'm just concerned with the impact of the work that would be necessary in the buffer or in the wetland.
We just, going through a torturous project off of Tilden Road for all these reasons, that discharge, dewatering, none of these things are met. So if it seems like we're being a little sticklers on some of this, it's because we're dealing with an awful mess right now. And this is a wet site, there's no getting around it. So anything that we can do to minimize those problems.
Yeah, so on the plan that was approved, they have the basement at elevation 58, which I personally wasn't really comfortable with. I raised it by 2 feet, so we're 2 feet higher with the basement now. So
What's the elevation of the wetlands, roughly?
about 59. 59 hits here, and then again here, about 59 and a half here.
So you're still,
So you probably don't need a foundation drain. If it's possible to put one in, it'd be nice, but I would think a sump pump would be adequate. But yeah, I would definitely want to put a foundation drain if there's a way to do it.
yeah, I don't see how you, I mean, you're already lower than that wetland, so, right?
Yeah, so even if it was like, I guess laid level, perfectly flat, put right below the slab, it would help a little bit. But I mean, I think we're relying on the sump pump primarily, and the fact that it's 2 feet. I've raised it by 2 feet.
Right, I mean, we're not here to keep water out of people's basements, but I'd say you're pretty close.
That's why I brought it up. Well, we're at 58, and I'm at 60 here. I am 2
Yeah.
feet above. I usually try to stay at least a foot. So,
Yep.
So I'm a little more than usual.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that they've answered the test pit at the swale is gonna get done, and the test pit at the driveway is gonna get done. Some part discharge we talked about, so the other thing that we'll need is the dewatering plan when that becomes necessary. Oh. Well, then, never mind. Never you mind.
There's no O&M plan.
Okay,
Okay.
so do we close this?
I would think that some of the things we talked about could be conditions.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. Those things that I just mentioned, as conditions, yep.
So we could close this hearing and do a set of conditions.
Yep.
Okay,
Make a motion to close.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And we'll stick this with that. Thank you very much. Thanks for,
Conditions, why aren't you saying closing? Why don't you say close?
It's very weird, but they did a nice job of revising it. They had a lot of stuff.
We always ask,
We didn't say what the
no, we always set the conditions after the close.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, always. That was one of my first, I don't know if you were here, I asked the same question. Like, I don't get it. Steve, how are you today?
Oh, look at this beautiful color.
Oh, you're gonna make Penny happy.
Matches your marketing.
Thank you, sir.
This guy knows how to do it right.
well, it's easier for me to see, too.
That's right.
I don't even need my glasses to see this.
It's complicated.
That's awesome. Yeah,
So, you know Kevin's done? Kevin's done?
Oh, I thought I saw an email.
Yeah. I don't think I got it, but that's what they were talking about earlier. Kevin's done?
Yeah.
Kevin is,
He said he just doesn't have enough hours in the day to be able to do
whatever,
it, so
something
he's
happened, I think maybe
resigning.
the cop thing got escalated or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Josh. Take care.
You know,
I like that guy a lot.
Yeah.
having the stormwater plan, I think is maybe all recently better projects. You know,
Right.
Some of them might have, this guy would be sitting in wetlands.
No, without question.
Yeah, so it's, we gotta balance it, we can't overwhelm.
I really like
No,
this
I
guy,
think
Josh.
that's the whole right idea.
He's gonna scale it.
Yeah, I really like him.
I do too.
Yeah, good guy.
And he's got a whole crew like that.
Yeah.
2 or 3 other guys, just as good.
Oh, nice.
Finley.
Steve, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Where'd Penny go?
Oh, Penny hit a bio break. So I gotta-
We're Penny
Wow.
Green.
Steve, I don't know what you did to the crowd here, but this is, get him out. Wow.
Did we determine what animal it was? Was it a fox, a coyote, a...
Looks like
A black bear?
Good sized mammal. Oh, sure, absolutely. Yes. There's one for your environmental studies. When you don't know whether it's a BVW or something else, just say it's a
It's
resource
a
area.
good size resource area, yeah.
Exactly.
How
Good-sized
political.
mammal, right. Nice. Well, that's why they're gonna have all this observation stuff, so that somebody can stake it out.
this afternoon.
By the way, I was on a site on Monday.
Yeah, I read
was
it.
followed
That's the-
by a
that's the
coyote
amazing
for about
thing. I
3
read it.
hours.
No kidding.
Barking at me and howling, you wouldn't believe it.
Where was this?
This was in Milton, actually, between Unkley Road and Governor Stoughton.
So what do you think, he had a den?
No,
Around?
not at
No.
all. I think it was
Hey,
just,
rabbit?
it was a high concentration of wolf genes, I believe, in this coyote, because the hair was very fluffy and gray as well.
30 seconds, I'll tell you that last summer, we had, every morning, 5 o'clock, 2 coyotes screaming at each other. It's a cross between a bark and a cat's meow, very loud. So my wife gets up, goes out on the deck, and yells at them and says, "You cut that out, you're waking me up." Never heard them again.
I talked to this coyote for 3 hours, it followed me for 1,800 feet one way and 1,800 feet the other way. And I talked to it, I talked back to it, I took some pictures of it, came to within about 125 feet of me. It never left me, it was amazing. Really amazing. Very good. I had it happen, but I did ask Mickey Marcus recently, yesterday, about it. He said he had it happen once in Raynham as well.
Wow.
Same thing, same with it. That's really, when you're hounded or dogged.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's
That's
exactly.
the real definition of being hounded or
Yeah.
dogged.
Just wanted a friend, Steve.
Evidently.
I wanted to let you know that that was home, and
Yeah.
appreciate you not altering
You're
it too
not-
much.
yeah.
Right.
The no-build zone.
Exactly. Are we set?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Steve Ivas, Ivas Environmental, for the record. I'm here tonight on behalf of Inley School and Sally Coyle of Coyle and Caron Landscaping. And you have in front of you yet another plan. We're going back to the original size of the boardwalk, except that it's now down to 3 feet wide, and it's 3 feet above the ground surface now, which is a better thing. And it also has half-inch spacing in between the boards. Luckily, both of these boardwalks are mostly east-west orientation, so that sunlight will be able to get under there very, very well. And there'll be a railing on it at 42 inches, and then a welded wire mesh below the railing. Very similar to the one, if you've ever been on the new Veterans Park along Plain Street in Marshfield. There's a boardwalk that goes all the way out to the South River there. Very similar to that design, actually, is what they've done. And it works very well. And so I think we've addressed the DEP comments on that. And I wanted to tell you that the direct contact on the ground, I calculated that each pier is if we do use the large piers, 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches, that's 30 inches square, which is 2/10 of a square foot. So basically, if you have 50 piers, you use 10 square feet, which is a very de minimis amount of wetland direct impact, because you're always using the piers.
Do you know how to spell de minimis?
Sorry, that's Latin. It's minimal. We'll just use minimal. Yeah, sorry. So the only other comments that I had from Sally is that the trail width was decreased inside the BVW from 3 feet to 3 feet from 4 feet. She did not recommend the cross slope away from the BVW, because then you'd have to do some more retention and build a swale, etc. So that the cross slope would be toward the BVW, and the retention would be by stones on that side, boulders and things on that side. And she noted that the trail within the BVW is located on grade with no cuts or fills, which creates the least amount of disturbance as well for that project. And I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any further questions. I'm sorry, I got this afternoon, I'll go through this with you as well. The green lines are the BVW locations themselves. The orange lines are the 50-foot. The pink lines are the 100 feet. There's a dark magenta line that starts outside the 100 and goes across, pretty flat. That's the ADA line. That becomes a lighter magenta line that goes up the hill, and then it also goes down into the wetland at the southerly, or the bottom portion of the picture. And then there's some very heavy dark black that's surrounded by red, and that's where the boardwalk, the 3-foot-high boardwalk off the wetlands is located. I hope that addresses everything. I'm sorry, I just got this plan this afternoon. I colored it up for you, and then scanned it in and made some copies, basically. A full-size plan is on its way, of course.
Did Sally mention that she went through the DEP stream crossing standards?
Absolutely, yes, and I checked those as well.
Steve, when the black and red one ends here, does that just mean it's just a ground trail?
That is correct.
Okay.
There are some steps right down to the ground, and in fact, it tells you right there.
Oh, yeah,
there are
risers.
five risers. Five risers there. That's 7.5 inches each, basically.
Okay, so that's an area that won't have standing water, it's wetland vegetation, but it's walkable on a trail.
That's correct. It's,
Oh,
the soils may be saturated
Latin name
below,
for shrubs.
no standing water anytime of the year. It's relatively, it's a good location, actually.
Materials for
What are we
the
doing?
posts approved by...
Voting this today, or what?
We could.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you have a new boardwalk elevation, if you want to take a look at that. There's basically a side view of the boardwalk on the second plan. And it shows your 42-inch high guardrail and then the welded wire mesh below it.
What was the purpose of that?
That's actually according to building code.
Yeah.
Once you go above 30 inches with the
Little people
boardwalk...
don't fall through or
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you go above 30 inches, you really have to do that, and it's safe that way.
Right.
And it makes a lot of sense, and if you go down and take a look at the one on South River, they did a very nice job on that welded wire mesh and the boardwalk itself. And they have these nice wide spaces between each one of the planks across the boardwalk. And the vegetation underneath the boardwalk is doing great. So I was very happy to see that. And it's about 3 feet off the ground, same distance. It's always nice to see something that's succeeded.
Right.
Before you propose something.
I'm good, I like it.
That's quite a,
It's going to be a little bit more expensive, as you can imagine.
that is already a pretty
Yes.
expensive project, but right.
Going to be a tremendous asset, though, I think.
Well, I think
It's going to
so,
be
too.
really cool. Yep.
I think it's very impressive.
Maybe we could get a few of those kids to, what does that school go to, 6th grade?
I think it's 6th, I'm not sure if it's
Sixth.
8th. I think it's 6th.
School young to be too-
35,000 a
It's 6,
whack.
and then they go to fair after.
You're on TV.
That's okay.
Penny,
Yes.
go for it.
No, I love it.
Well,
So
Oh,
make
you
a,
want me to close
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Would you rather I did it?
No, that's okay. I make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll
Great,
get you a
Steve.
plan.
Good luck.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah,
Thank
looking
you.
forward to
My
walking
pleasure.
it.
You're gonna lead some of the
I hope to.
classes
Yeah.
out here
I would
after?
be happy to.
That-
Yeah. It's a really neat place. It's
It
very,
is.
very
It's in
species
there.
diverse
Yeah.
as well.
Really
I'm so
is.
glad they bought that house.
Absolutely.
You know?
And they're
Yeah.
using it. And
Yeah,
if
they are.
you've been up there recently,
Yes.
they're really using the area pretty well,
Yeah.
actually.
Is that the phone?
Wasn't that Dr.
It's a beautiful property.
Yes, it is.
Hopkins? Yeah, he was a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
And lived up there.
I
Right.
didn't
He
know
was
him.
on
Yeah.
Board of Health
No, I didn't know.
for a long time.
But anyways, go ahead.
By the way, I just wanted to say that I think you did the right thing around the vernal pool. If you could get some trees and shrubs around that vernal pool, it would be a lot better for the pool itself.
Then
And the amphibians that live in
Then
there.
the tractors that go in and mow it now?
Yes.
But you know what? It's
did have 'em-
driving.
But they can't use
That's the
Bobcat.
crazy
It is.
thing.
It's confounding to all of us.
It
to
is.
Understand it. It really is.
I mean, I'm almost afraid not to let
Have
them
you-
do
Cell phone
their
tower,
thing.
it's
Have you any idea where the animals
Letting
are
them to
coming from?
grow.
Are they
No.
coming from way over here?
Or up behind the
Or over
buses, or,
across?
yeah.
We don't know,
Yeah.
but they're
anyway,
there.
I know, they're there in.
That could be good or bad. Someone could certainly
know.
make a case and say, why protect them at all?
Well, you know,
No.
the one vernal pool that was-
Yeah, he left the room.
We've surrounded it with asphalt, buildings,
No,
and
no, no,
vehicles.
I know.
There was a vernal
And
pool in
kids.
Framingham, next to the new cinemas out there on Route 30. That was a good vernal pool, and because of a parking lot built right up to it, destroyed the vernal pool itself, sadly. So that's the classic case in Massachusetts.
Right, right.
Vernal pool going bad. So we always try to head away from that.
Right.
And if you're just putting clear water off the roof or something, you're fine.
Do you have one of those wood frog calls that Pat has?
No, I do not. I just go out and get them in the field.
Sounds like a duck.
Yes.
I had to tell Pat to shut his off
Looks
the
like
other day.
Oh, your remote?
Yes,
remote
right,
call?
yeah.
Would that
That and the
call?
box turtle in your pocket. Oh, we're on TV, right?
Yep.
One other thing I'd like to recommend to you, if you look at the filings for Bayberry Road, I was involved in some areas that were filled in many, many years ago before the Wetlands Protection Act. And I think it was John Zimmer who looked at it. He was a peer reviewer on that project. There were 3 houses, I think, on
Right.
on Bayberry there.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I basically did the same thing as Brad did, at least what I heard tonight. So you might want to look at that file.
Oh, the one with the,
So you
With the
delineated the wetlands just by site?
By site, by the vegetation, and it was some frag and there was other wetland species. In fact, I think there was some salt marsh species out there as well in that location.
it's Bayberry Road?
Bayberry Road, 25 and
I mean,
35.
because we
Yeah.
delineate,
One of the houses right now is like stopped under appeal, so.
Oh. One of yours?
Sorry.
No.
Didn't mean to speak.
No, I might be in the wrong spot, but,
Right.
yeah, you're right, they're very similar.
Similar situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
This one goes to Musquashia Pond, that goes to the, like the Bassins Beach.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's right.
okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Thank
So-
you.
So sure, that might
All
help.
right.
Thanks a lot.
Steve.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
and,
Steve.
good
Are
night.
you,
Thank you.
did Steve know that, it's the site off for Summer Street?
The Glen, I asked, the Glen was supposed to have pre-construction, and they canceled, but.
Really?
But Steve maybe,
Did you work for us as
Yes,
a
I sure
consultant?
did. I sure
And that
did.
was, Beals and Thomas?
That's correct.
The engineer.
David Johnson and
Yeah.
Stacy Minahan.
Are they still with the project?
I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
too bad, because they
He
were...
contacted us about a month ago, but there's a new owner, so I don't know.
Oh, they sold.
Do we still have any money in that account?
Yeah.
So regardless of who's doing it, we'll be in touch.
I'll be happy to assist.
Because it goes way back prior to Pat, and I mean,
Sure.
I was involved, but it's an old project.
Yes,
so-
it is.
But
And there are some memos from me in the file as to
Yep.
what they should be doing next as well. So that'll help as well.
And the trail didn't end up getting changed either, so
Right.
it went back to the original trail, so that's good.
Good,
Yeah.
good, that's
That
great.
they're gonna do what they originally
Yeah.
said they were gonna do.
I'm glad to hear that.
we'll be
Yes.
talking to you.
Okay.
All right.
Steve.
Thanks,
very
Steve.
much.
Take
Thank you
care.
very
Bye.
much. Good night, Steve.
Can we do some orders?
So nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I do some orders?
Yeah.
It's a busy agenda tonight.
I make a motion that we accept the orders from Pratt, 180 Central Ave.
No, you don't.
No, there's no DEP file number, I see. Okay, let me go down to, I make a motion, we accept the orders as written for 5 Irving Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion, we accept the orders as written for 46 Townway Extension.
Second that, too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
I make a motion, we accept...
We already did it.
Yeah, we did do that.
Yeah, with the conditions, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we're all set. And,
Well, we had 19 Wood Road Island review.
What
Oh,
number?
yeah, he's gonna.
Number 36 Brunswick, did we talk about that while I was out, or?
No, we didn't.
This one is, Mrs. Walsh down, Paul.
Where's that?
See that?
It's down on the certificate of compliance. Did
Way
she
down.
do what she's
Oh, yeah.
supposed to yet?
Yeah, Carol and I were talking, there were 2 orders of conditions. One was to put up the house and the driveway and all that. We're missing some paperwork on that one, but the second piece was plant the grass and not allow a car to go out the end of the driveway. So that's been done. There's 2 boulders and there's 2 posts put in, you can't get a car
On the right
out.
side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's been going on for about
Yep.
7
A year or
years.
We'd love to close this one out. There may be a missing piece of paperwork that brings her back into our lives again, but I think that part we can vote and close.
Okay.
So, let's do it.
Well, we don't have to vote on the certificate of compliance, he just gives us
Oh, okay.
an
Never mind.
update
Okay.
on it. What about the other three, the
272, yep,
Central?
that's all set to go.
They're all
Yeah.
set to go?
Yeah, that does look nice.
Good, good, good. And you were gonna 19 Wood Island, you
Yep.
just want to make a little change?
Wood Island, this is the one we permitted recently. Beautiful spot on Indian Trail.
Unbelievable spot.
It's spectacular. There's the driveway in, he's got a proposal, this is inside, outside the 50, squaring off or triangulating off this deck here. And it's over stone, it's over ledge.
Right.
He just wanted to do that.
Because there was a patio out here already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, this was all
Yeah.
rotted, I think that's being,
He's very good, he comes whenever he has a change.
Yep.
He pays attention.
I don't have a problem.
No problem.
okay. Revised plan approved?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What a spot.
Oh, man, oh.
Can we leave now?
I don't know, there's, no,
Pat, you were like at the Glen project when
Oh, yeah.
we jumped out of that.
concrete construction.
So, on the agent's reports, we were about halfway through when we went into.
Oh, we went to the Border
Yeah,
Street.
yeah, they were supposed to
Right
do
there.
the Glen pre-construction, and they canceled it, so. Met Cobra Construction, or Border Street.
Yeah, we
we'll
talked
get
about
them
that.
there.
Yeah.
Just don't be drawn in too much, I mean.
Right, it was a
it's been
mess. I went out there.
age-old.
It's really a mess.
And
All-
someone wants to, I think if they just keep the damn pipe clear,
Yeah, the trees all died,
so.
so it was.
But it's nothing really new there. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, I wish there was a paper trail that closed it out. There isn't even an order.
Yeah.
The guys threw a pipe in, it looks like, so.
but if there were no pipe at all, then all that whole area would be flooded.
But it was stream crossing, that nobody filed anything.
Well, I don't know how old it is. It looks like it's been there a very long time.
That
Maybe.
stuff is ancient. They just have to, when the problem started was when they did some landscaping on the side where the pipe is on each side.
yeah.
And they put a ton of mulch in. They shouldn't have done that. And it
Yeah.
all, I think we had a rain or something. Whatever, if they had just left it alone, but it keeps getting clogged, and I don't know if they
And then it floods the backyards of a
re-landscaped
few
again,
of
and
those
then it backs
houses.
up the
Right.
street into Cohasset, and it was nasty.
Yeah, it's real nasty. It was
But
nasty
they
this
just
week.
have to keep the pipe clean, and it should be fine,
Right.
Frank, again.
Okay.
Cobra Construction, these guys have been working down on Hummerock and Lisa's neighborhood and in Rich's neighborhood, clearing rocks and putting them out front. And he said there's been so many changes over the years of what they're allowed to do, what they weren't allowed to. They just decided to go do it. So I sat down with Leo, who's the owner, and we talked about identifying all the homes he has as clients, and then we went to each one, and we talked about, on this house, you can go up this side, on this one, you have to go around. So we have kind of a plan for
Good.
14 houses, so, and he promises he'll contact us about minor activities from now on, and
And he's working
What's he
away.
doing, putting
he
the cobble
got
back?
four,
Yeah, he is.
yeah.
It is.
He got 4 minor activity permits this week.
Saw that, yeah.
So-
Yeah,
So that's good, and he's actually a decent guy, he just wants to do it the right way, he just didn't want to go through a lot of filings, so.
He's very courteous to the way he works. I mean, he's gone chances of cars coming up and down the street.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
Did you get any feedback from Neil on materials, hauling away materials? I saw you.
Yeah, it's not the language in the bylaw I was hoping for.
Yeah.
That's the town bylaw. It's really about excavating is what the
Right.
town bylaw. Stuff that's on top that piles up that you want to take off, no mention. So it might be hidden away in our bylaw, I mean, the wetland protection.
Has anything ever, did they have a meeting in Humrock last week?
No, it wasn't in Humrock, it was about Humrock, Monday night. Monday night.
We had everybody here except for you and Bill.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was at a
It was small, it was a small meeting.
It was really just for the beach association.
It was at the library.
But have they resolved any,
Could be her last conservation meeting.
has the town resolved anything about what they're gonna do? Have they moved forward at all?
This was more about the 4th of July, 3rd or 4th of July fireworks they talked about, more than anything.
Oh, we don't care about that.
Yeah.
Bonfire thing.
Yeah.
It's enough,
Yeah.
you gotta feed enough ones, the police and fire can deal with that.
No, they.
That's exactly right.
And then the stones, there was some talk about
Yeah.
it.
Cobble.
Got nowhere on
It's,
that one.
that guy at 308 that got hammered the worst. I mean, his name comes up all the time. I sent another email out today, and Tricia rode by it, and Sean Harris rode by it. So I think he's gonna probably get some kind of relief.
Is that the guy at the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, gee, I'll be willing to store the stones there in the winter as long as you help me get them out in the spring, which that would help the town,
Sure.
if they could put them there, so.
And everybody else is to put it on there.
92 Clap was the person who was in last week for a minor project. There was a deck more than 50 feet away. She has an enclosed porch, putting on a deck, and then we found an open order. We said you can't do it until you've closed out the order. But it was a different person who had the house when the order was. So this woman says, oh, okay, tell me what I need to do. Her only question was, she'll do the plantings and all that. Her only question is, it's so grown in at the 50, does she need a fence? And I said I would bring it back to the commission. She said, could I put posts in with things? It's really impenetrable where it is.
So then,
I mean, if
just
anybody
put
wants
the
to take a
posts
look-
up and, no, then,
Yeah.
92.
92, drops down in the back, next to the guy with the big boat.
Little house, teeny.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, way out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, left off of,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
the other side, yeah.
Yeah,
just let it do the posts, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
In the plantings.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Atlantic Ave, this is parallel to Central Ave.
What number Atlantic is that, Pat?
It's an empty lot, but it's across from, oh, God,
Where is that?
forget.
That's right along the water.
Yeah.
It's more toward your end of Atlantic. There's a greenhouse up on Central, and it's directly what's behind that. Turns out there's an empty lot that a guy just bought, and a ton of sand has been brought in and leveled off, and it looks like it's gonna be used for parking, but there was a whole area of vegetation that was covered.
It just went right over.
Yeah, so we wrote a letter, and, well, we had a call from the contractor, who said, I don't want to do anything out there without talking to you, and I said, I'd come out there with people this week. I've seen it, but they've done two things. They've created 2 parking spots on the lot goes all the way through, so he's created 2 parking spots on
So
Central.
the contractor that's already done this is now saying he doesn't want to, or they want to get somebody else?
The contractor said that he wants to work and do whatever we want to help the people get out of trouble.
Who's the contractor?
I have it in there, I don't have it out here. So it's one of the regular guys. Might be.
But they did the work without,
Well, what I was told was the storm this winter, they just took it from the street and they put it on the lot to level it off. You know, it's,
okay.
so, anyway, so we can take a look, and we've written a letter to the people, and so anyways. 214 Central, it looked like the big rocks that the other contractor had brought in are gone, the homeowner, it looked like he took them out of there. It's a
They're
big
gone.
job to take them out of there.
They're gone.
Wow, that was good. And I think that is it. Hummerock meeting, I don't know if there's anything else to say, and then Lisa has the Rona Pool stuff.
And we have some minutes. Can I do this quick?
You
I
may.
make a motion to accept the minutes of March 19th, 2014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of April 2nd, 2014.
Second.
Hi.
Do we have to do anything official with Kevin?
Well, he's up. this year.
Yeah.
So we just leave it alone?
I just caught that real quick.
Yeah, he's gonna write a letter, he thinks he's gonna continue to be busy.
Okay.
He thought it'd be better to
Well,
step on.
his term's up, so,
Yeah, he's a policeman, and now with all the traffic details, he'd be crazy to come to one of these.
Yeah, right, making that kind of
Crazy to
money.
run
so,
these,
you
eh?
know, in June, they'll
No,
hopefully-
Paul's not up then, right?
Paul is up, but
Paul's
Paul
up too.
wants, yeah, I do believe, Paul, when I asked him, he said, yeah, I'd like to stay. I said,
So we'll have
"Well,
to start to
put something in,
work towards another member.
yes, if anybody knows.
Bigger desk.
You wouldn't know what to do.
We got some crazies the last time there were openings, I don't know if we wanna,
I think we need another woman.
another Humrock person.
But I did like the idea of Richard running for selectman. We'll put-
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yes.
not happening.
As long as he
we
can
should-
stay on
We
conservation.
still,
Right.
That wouldn't work either.
I think that
still-
would be terrific.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
stay
it.
on conservation a
Aren't the
little
two
while. I'm
seats
not going for
open?
select.
to make a motion to end the meeting, to close
Do
the
it-
meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
It won't happen, don't worry.
You got a vernal pool comments?
Oh, no, no, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna type up some notes, because I learned about different critters. If there's a fairy shrimp, that's all you need for
Yep.
a certified vernal pool. So
Right
I was
out
just
there.
gonna make a list of, like, you know, if you have one of these or two of these, they constitute certification. And then I'm going to buy an underwater camera, because I was told that you have to have pictures at certain angles, especially for the, certain critters.
Do you have an underwater camera?
I don't.
They do? The wood-
I do. I have one.
Yeah.
We
I have a
kept them
flip
in the
phone.
net, and then we put them on a piece of paper, so.
Well, they said white or
Gonna kill
yellow
'em.
photographs.
Yeah, but that's
But the
sort of
cool
like-
thing was,
And then we put 'em right
the
back.
polarized glasses, they said to take really the pictures, shoot the picture through your Polaroid glasses, polarized.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it'll be like looking through your polarized glasses, because you had learned
I
that, you
magnified a
know,
little
you
bit.
wear those, I mean, to see everything, that, it was a little cloudy, oh, maybe it is.
Yeah.
And then they showed it through the Polaroid glasses, like, wow,
Must magnify it a little.
yeah, oh, it
Must
it
magnify
makes
it
it
a
pop,
little,
yeah.
Yeah, a sunny day makes a big difference.
And then they
so,
said, don't go out with those waders on, because they told a story of almost drowning, and somebody on horseback saved it. I was like,
I thought of that.
yeah. I said, you just couldn't take them off. She said, it was very cold. I was like, buddy system, got it. Yeah.
Motion to
I loved it,
adjourn.
field trip in the
Motion to
mud.
close.
Yes.
Adjourn,
Thank you.
yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Make a motion.